Hello, Garner, and welcome to the Town Council regular meeting of April 21st, 2026. It's another beautiful evening in Garner, and if you don't like the weather in North Carolina, just give it another day. It'll change. It'll be here. Having said that, would the town clerk please call the roll?
Mayor Gupton,
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Dillinger,
Here.
Councilmember Matthews,
Here.
Councilmember Singleton,
Here.
Councilmember Stallings,
Here.
and Councilmember Vance.
Here.
Thank you. And our Pledge of Allegiance this evening will be led by our council member, Kelvin Stallings, as well as the invocation. Stand if you're able.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please bow your heads if you may. Dear Heavenly Father, we come before you tonight with gratitude, grateful for life, grateful for peace, grateful for this community. Grant us your divine wisdom as we make decisions, especially in moments where we cannot fully see the future or all the implications of what we do. Help us act with clarity, integrity, and a steady focus on what is best for this town and the people who call it home. Guide our judgment, steady our conversations, and remind us of the responsibility that we carry as we do what's best for and the work of the people. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. Excellent job. Brings us to item B on the agenda, which is the adoption of the agenda. I believe council members have had a chance to look this over. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Matthews, second by Councilmember Stallings. All in favor of adopting the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? Passes unanimously. The agenda is adopted. We'll start out with a presentation this evening from our fire rescue. Our fire chief, Barrett Tenney, will tell us about the strategic plan and to help us moving ahead and maintaining the fine, highly accredited and effective fire department that we have. Chief Tenney.
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. We'd like to take this opportunity tonight. We've been working over the past several months on revising and redoing our strategic plan for the next 5 years. So we've got a kind of a new way to envision our strategic plan, and this couples with months of research from external and internal stakeholders. And what we've come up with is basically 7 goals, okay? And those 7 goals center around operational readiness, workforce readiness, health and safety of our people and our citizens, communication and consistency, capacity planning, looking at growth in the future of the town, continuous improvement, and then we need to hone in on our records keeping and optimization of that. So we can show you what I say is the blend of just the paperwork of the plan, but we've got a new presentation, and this is going to be how our citizens, our management can look at our plan and keep track with us as we move through it. So I would like to introduce our Deputy Chief of Administration, Jason Hathcock. When I say that, he's the mastermind behind this plan. So how it's envisioned, how you get to interact with it, and how we can be held accountable for achieving our goals. So I'm going to turn it over to Chief Hathcock, and he's going to walk you through the interaction of our plan. Chief?
Thank you, Chief Penny. Thank you to Mayor, Council, Town Management, and those in attendance as well. As part of your agenda packet, you did have our what we call our paper strategic plan, which we understand traditionally is always of importance. Those electronic versions that people interact with are always going to typically be part of any strategic planning process. Intentionally, as we challenge ourselves to improve organizationally and honestly, personally, one of the things I found over my many years in the fire service connected to continuous improvement is you have to find a way to interactively engage people in things that they might not normally want to take part in. So one of the things that I had envisioned for this strategic planning process was how do we go beyond just that paper copy that we know we provide It's a fairly static document, even though the intent of a strategic plan is to be very dynamic. And we had a goals and objectives management report, which was a separate document from the paper plan that was a mechanism we used to track progress and share progress during the 5-year period. So really through a lot of networking and different conversations with people on unique ways to showcase strategic plans and really outside the box thought processes, I decided to embark on an application that's really built for GIS professionals. It's called an ArcGIS Story Map. So what that allows is a shareable link that we intend to post at some point on our Facebook or on our fire department page that will provide the opportunity for anyone, internally or externally, to be connected to everything about the history of our plan, updates along the way as we meet, our goals, our objectives, our task. It also has a connection to what we call an ESRI operations dashboard, which I'm really, really excited about, because one of the things that our accreditation model challenges us with is how we share progress along the way, and that's really been a challenge for us. Sending static spreadsheets is not necessarily always the best way to share progress. So as we meet quarterly and we update our plan, the operations dashboard will be updated as well. And we also have an interactive survey, just 3 questions at the end throughout the entirety of this plan that will allow stakeholders to interact and provide feedback. So again, I'm just going to do a pretty brief high-level overview of the plan. First, just a little bit about us. The video clip this here is about 7.5 minutes of just really me talking, explaining what the plan's for, how to interact with it, and of course encouraging feedback along the way. One of the things that I'm really, really excited about is our 2020 to 2025 plan. With that goals and objectives management report we completed over 90% of what we set out to accomplish within that plan. So less than 10% of the old plan carried into the new plan, which obviously for us made us very proud. So as I just scroll through this, our founding principles, our mission, our vision, our values. As you saw in your agenda packet, our intent is this is the cover page for the paper version. After presenting to you all tonight, our intent is to make sure that there's embedded link here so people will know if you want to access the paper version of the plan, the PDF version, you'll be able to do that by clicking on this cover page. Also, another thing we're challenged with in the plan is to make sure that our plan is connected with the town plan and with any other associated plans. That also includes community master plans, which I just learned about recently. The Garner Forward plan, we're being challenged in the 11th edition of our model to make sure as we create this that we're looking at some of those pieces in addition to the specific strategic plans that we take part in. Overall, the town plan, although we fit into different avenues depending on what the objective or task was, overwhelmingly our fit was under the efficient and timely service delivery piece. And then within Wake County's plan, the Safer Community Together component. So we've got a historical timeline here, which really just kind of is a brief overview of progress since we started this. In June of 25, we started to become aware of our latest model in accreditation, which is for this 5-year cycle. One of the things that we're challenged with in any of the processes is making sure that we've got a plan that other people can connect with, and also we have to submit to our authority having jurisdiction. So that is a core competency for us. We can't create a plan in a silo. We have to make sure that we involve stakeholders and also that we submit that plan to our AHJ. We are also challenged to create SMART goals, as you well know, as specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-bound. And as I mentioned earlier, we're challenged with creating a process that people can stay connected to along the way so they can see the progress that we're making throughout the duration of the plan. So I won't read over all of these. I will highlight some of the key components. As far as our internal stakeholder feedback, I completed 22 sessions over 78 hours with staff for what we called a SOAR analysis, strengths, opportunities, aspirations, and results. As a result of that effort, we also had an external stakeholder survey, and we keep customer service surveys available all throughout the year. We distribute over 10% of the calls that we respond to each month. We send surveys to customers. They also have the opportunity at any point during the year to go online and fill out a survey. So we got 101 external stakeholder survey responses specific to the strategic plan. We had 717 over our 5-year strategic planning cycle. And as a result of all of those SOAR conversations internally with staff, we resulted in the 137 strengths, 175 opportunities, 160 aspirations, and 155 results, which was a lot to put together. But you know, it was really, really successful with staff, spending time with them, letting them see a little behind the scenes and how they are a much larger part of the plan than what they may be aware. So as you can see for tonight, April, we've already put on that tonight we present to council. The goal is after tonight, once we finish, is to get that shareable link up on our website so people can begin interacting with that. I try to explain goals, objectives, and tasks. I use an ice cream shop analogy to staff, but in generalization, a 30,000, 20,000, and 10,000 foot view is kind of how I try to explain it. Now, maybe a little subjective in the 10,000 foot piece. There's a lot of human elements that might not be identifiable at 10,000 feet, but as it compares to 30,000 feet, it's just zoom levels. We get deeper and deeper through each piece. So Chief Penny mentioned earlier 7 goals, 7 overarching goals connected to 29 objectives. So each goal has objectives attached to it along with critical tasks. The 29 objectives, all of them generally have about 4 critical tasks. A few have 5. That is how we will measure progress along the way. So what you see here is purely for demonstration purposes. The colors you see really just kind of show the different variations of levels we have built within this progress tracker. So the blue is on hold, the red would be not started, the yellow is in progress, the green is complete, and the gray would be canceled. So that is what we will update at minimum each quarter. As we have our own strategic planning meetings, we will come in and keep this piece updated. So at any point when you're clicking on that link, that will be most reflective of what we're doing. You can click on this and it will take you outside and let you interact at a little deeper level, but for the sake of this review, I'll just show you this part. And I won't go through every one of the goals, but the 7 goals, you can see here what goal 1 is. We've got 7 objectives connected to goal 1, and the deeper dive into those objectives, you use the right arrow here. Each objective has who it's assigned to. It has the time frame. It has the specifics of what are associated with those critical tasks. We have our correlation with the plans, and we have anticipated outcomes. So we have that for every single objective within the plan. And as I said, I won't belabor the conversation by going through all 7. But goal 2, workforce readiness. Goal 3, health, wellness, and culture. Goal 4, communication and consistency. Goal 5, capacity planning. Goal 6, continuous improvement. Goal 7, records optimization. And then finally, as I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, another piece that was really important to us was getting feedback along the way. We didn't want to make an exhaustive survey because we felt like that would deter people from completing it. But what we wanted to know is they had the opportunity to interact with it and what their thoughts were on it. So just 3 simple questions. Did you find the plan clear and easy to understand? Did it help establish a strong framework, in your opinion, for us as we move forward? And of course, the open text box where they can share anything whatsoever they choose to with us. And then, of course, our social media connections on the bottom for both the town and the fire department. So just a brief, really high-level overview, something different we're trying to create in addition to the paper plan. So I will now open the floor for any questions or comments.
Thank you very much, Chief. It's always good to remind all of us that job number one for any town government, and especially for the town government, is public safety. And you guys are right there out front with the police, the public works, the inspectors. It's all about keeping our community safe. We can't thank you enough. It's not just a glamour of riding the fire truck and putting out fires, fighting fires, going to rescues. It's about planning and education and evaluation and continual striving to be better. And that's where all of our departments, and especially the fire department, have really excelled. So thank you for what you're doing. We'll take comments and questions from council. We'll start with Mr. Matthews and come right down the line.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Great presentation, by the way. Y'all put a lot of effort and time in it, and the fact it's an ongoing and a working document, that's good planning because you don't have to recreate it. You can work with it. And the fact that the town manager or anybody or in the audience can go online and see what's going on and even make comments. I think it's a great idea. It's time has come, and good leadership on the fire department to come up with something uniquely different. And so great job, because one thing people want to see the blue lights and the red lights when they need them. So, and both agencies do a fabulous job of that. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Singleton.
Yes, thank you for all the information. You do put a lot of time into it, countless hours, and greatly appreciated. That's your presentation, and hope some members of the public will look and see all the planning that goes into the work that you have to do. So greatly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stallings.
Great presentation, extremely comprehensive. I did have one question, and I love this feedback element to it as well too. So when it comes to the continual improvement element, I see it. Can we scroll up a little bit? Sure. So when it says, did you find the strategic plan clear and easy to understand? If you had an overwhelming amount of people that say yes, is it something where we might develop a one-pager or something that we can distribute to the public that's a little bit more easy to digest? Is that
Absolutely. I think we would definitely be open to anything based on the feedback that come in a better way to communicate with stakeholders, because that's all this is just a different mechanism to communicate other than the paper version. So although we felt like this version maybe was a little easier to digest and a little more intuitive, if it was believed based on the feedback that it was a little too much, we would certainly be open to change whatever we need to make that more digestible.
It was definitely amazing document, great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dellinger.
Yeah, I agree with my colleagues. Having the digital interface available to people is just so much more accessible to so many more people. And I want to give appreciation to the amount of effort that probably went into this strategic plan versus the others coming in with the town. I don't know, but I assume there's a lot more work involved in making this document than there probably has been. So hats off to you all for doing that new and extra work. I did one question just around, it's in your goals. It's about recruitment and retention, and just I don't know if maybe a question for both of you. Where do we sort of stand in the county with regards to recruitment and retention? Is it something we need to really lean into? Are we doing really well? Is everybody jealous of us? How are we doing in that department?
So I think specific to the recruitment conversation, until we migrated to the 4896 schedule that we're on now, we were struggling a little bit to recruit folks, mostly due to travel. And when we made the change to the 48 hours consecutively, it allowed us an opportunity to get people from further out. I think that offered some advantages, but what it also created for us that I don't think we were aware of at the time is it also gave them an opportunity to truly disconnect when they were away. So, we're dealing with some of that now from a retainment perspective. Recruitment and retention compared to national statistics, and that's what I'll base that on. I don't think we have any retainment issues within the fire department like anywhere else. We may lose someone, but it's not necessarily to another fire department. It could be because they tried it out and just maybe it wasn't the line of work that they expected, so they want to try something different. But most definitely, I think we could stand to improve our recruitment efforts. One of the things that we've tasked our training officer with, and we have an expansion for a division chief, is a focus on true recruitment and professional development beyond just a hiring process. How do we get out and get in front of people? And we are also attracting people that we prefer to be certified fully ahead of time, which comes with its own challenges because we don't host our own academy, which is another reason why the training facility we have is part of this plan and the capital improvement plan. So I guess a short/long-term goal is when we get that facility, we would be able to host our own training academy with the intent of providing people with no training whatsoever in the fire service the opportunity to work with us.
Thank you so much, and good luck. And if you ever need anything, lean on the town with those firefighters.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
A very thorough briefing. We really appreciate all the work that went into this strategic plan. I have one question. As Garner continues to grow, how confident are we that our current system can keep up? And where do we need to go ahead and get ahead of that growth?
Well, you want to speak? Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Vance. So I think it's important that we have an accurate growth. You know, we keep up accurately with growth. We can talk growth all the time, but one of the main advantages is that we're more and more involved in the town now. So we get to see the growth. Participating in TRC, when I attend these meetings, the council meetings, I'm hearing about things, and we know what's coming down the pipe 3 to 5 years down the road as developers and y'all are approving projects. We get a more accurate account. So I think that that's important, but the challenges that we face are predominantly call volume. We're a very busy fire department if you look in our stats as compared to everywhere else. So I think we're on the right track for predicting growth and being more involved. But it's always a challenge, right? You're dealing with a budget and you're dealing with service demand, and those two things have to be, weighed in accounts for each other. But I will say, town management, the managers, and the budget team, they're working with us day in and day out to make sure that we're achieving our goals.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah, quite a presentation. Makes me want to go and work through the strategic plan and give you a rating here. Only 3 questions, right? Only 3 questions. I like it. I like it a lot. Any other closing comments from you, gentlemen?
Just thank you for the opportunity to show the town and the council the way we're going to be able to track this and keep up with it. I'm excited about it, and I'd like to publicly thank Chief Hathcock for, you're right, the many hours that he invested in putting this together and making it a public live document where we can interact with.
Chief, what's our strength right now?
I mean, what is our staff number? So we're 81 line staff, and we have 8 full-time administrative staff and 1 supplemental administrative staff.
Okay.
Yep. Okay.
Fantastic, gentlemen. You may be seated and
Thank you,
enjoy
Mayor.
the rest of the show. Thank you very much. And next on our agenda is item D, which is petitions and comments. And we always like to read this disclaimer to explain what this is. This portion of the meeting is to receive comments from the public on items not included in this agenda regarding matters germane to town policies or business or subjects within the town council's real or apparent jurisdiction. Individuals or group spokespersons must sign up with the town clerk prior to the start of the meeting. The council is interested in hearing your concerns, but will not take action or deliberate on subject matter brought up during the petitions and comments segment. Topics requiring further investigation will be referred to the appropriate town officials or staff and may be scheduled for a future agenda. And have anyone signed up?
Yes, sir.
Yes, and who is our first speaker?
Cleve Avery.
Yes, if you would please approach the podium there and introduce yourself by name and address, sir. And of course, I think I didn't mention, but you've probably seen the 3-minute limit. There's a little timer there. Thank you for, there you go. It seems to be on.
It's working.
All right.
My name is Cleveland Avery. I've been a resident of Garner for about 40 years now. And I live in the older part of the community. It goes way back a number of years. And I'm at 104 Turner Street, Garner, NC 27529. And due to the time constraints, I just want to go straight into what I consider a proposal to this council. Okay, and I understand you've already made the point that the action will not be taken at this point. But the main concern is there is a recently upgraded park called Jackie John's Senior Public Park at the on Rand Mill Road, adjacent to Smith Drive. And I'm sure you guys are all familiar with that. The problem that I see with this has to do with public safety, of course, and that is the park nicely built, put together, with no parking lot. And I've traveled throughout this nation extensively, and I've seen different parks, but I've never seen a park without a parking lot. Right now, it's a narrow street going down to that park, and you can barely pass each other just in a vehicle. But when you have gatherings in the park, whether it's events that's authorized or just general events with people, you've got cars and vehicles parked on both sides of this narrow road. Sometimes the vehicle is, part of the car is in the street, sometimes they're stopped in the street, and it kind of impedes traffic. And the safety feature here is you got to navigate yourself through all of this. And then the pedestrian, a lot of kids walking around, they could get injured or even lose their life. So this is one of the primary, I consider a major issue in the town of Garner that needs to be addressed. So I would propose to this council that we put together some kind of plan or a study, at least, to begin the process and try to eliminate this problem. And the main goal here is to establish a safe parking place for all the people that's not only in the area, but people that comes into the area. And as you said earlier, someone said earlier, the town is steady growing. A lot of things are happening right now. And I think it's good, but we have to keep up with the growth. So I'm open for any comments or questions.
Thank you very much for your comments. They're well taken. Safety is important, and our parks are important. It's hard to use one without a place to park, and you want to be safe getting there. So thank you very much for your input.
Thank you.
And is there another speaker signed up?
Yes, sir. Carol Holloway.
Yes. If you would please approach the podium and introduce yourself, name and address.
Good evening. My name is Carol Holloway, and my address is 102 Pinery Circle in Garner. And I'm here tonight to compliment the board, the council, and I want to say that transparency is very, very important. The new elective councilman, I want to encourage them to not be discouraged of the negative comments that may come your way. And I would also like to ask, just continue to hold your head up and stay confident of yourself. That, the new elected councilman, you were elected by the people of Garner and not by one particular segment. We want to continue, I will continue to watch the progress because I think you all are doing a great job, and want to continue to encourage the council to be transparent, because transparency is the action to take in every situation. So I just come to compliment you all and let you all know that I am a citizen for 36 years here in Garner, and I consider it a very really good town to live in. And so I would just like to see continues working together, see you all continue to work together, and for all that's newly elected to feel confident and continue to do your job.
Well, thank you very much. We don't get that many people coming with such a positive message. We greatly appreciate you coming in and sharing your thoughts with us.
You're quite welcome.
And do we have another speaker?
Yes, sir. Ricky Pierce.
Yes, Mr. Pierce, if you would come to the podium, introduce yourself, name and address.
Your clock's falling down here. I'm Ricky Pierce. I live at 1810 Bandora Springs Road. Of course, I've been coming up here past few months. I actually thought the other day, I said, am I doing any good? I'm not going to change the results of the last election. I'm not happy with it. There are a lot of people who are not happy with it. But I've had people tell me that don't want to get up here to speak, keep going, keep putting word out there. So I'm going to be here. Thought about words and different things. The lady mentioned transparency. Well, the definition of transparency is the quality of being easy to see through, both literally and figuratively. Openness, honesty, and the lack of hidden agendas. It implies accountability, clarity in communication, and the disclosure of information in business, government, and daily life. The other words, integrity, the quality of being honest, having strong moral principles, and maintaining consistency in action and values, adhering to high moral principles such as telling the truth, keeping promises, and avoiding deception. Cheating, the act of using dishonest, fraudulent, or unfair methods to gain an advantage, break rules, or violate trust in relationships, academics, or games. It involves breaking established commitment or boundaries to deceive others for personal gain. Legacy. We all talk about a legacy. We talk about the legacy my dad left for me and all. Money, property, or intangible assets. For example, reputation, culture, or trauma, handed down from an ancestor, predecessor, or the past. Here's one. We hear a lot of this. We see a lot of it. Narcissist. I heard that word a lot before I finally looked up the definition of it. An individual with excessive, unhealthy, and preoccupation with themselves, characterized by a deep need for admiration, an inflated sense of self-importance, and a distinct lack of empathy for others. They often exhibit arrogant behavior, exploit relationships for personal gain, and may mask a fragile self-esteem. This last election, I'm here, like I say, can't change anything about the last election, but I'm here to make sure it does not happen again. Our town is too good for the dirty politics that went on. Mr. Matthews, Mr. Vance, you're excused from this. The three of you in the middle, minus the mayor, you know what I'm talking about. Trey, your little spat with Mike McIver cost this town. We got Mr. Dowd.
We're not going to have
You listen to me. This is my time.
Right.
We got Mr. Stallings instead of Mike McIver, a 25-year servant of this town. That's like the New York Yankees trading Aaron Judge for Melvin Hernandez. Who? That's what I'm saying. Mr. Stallings, you say you're here for 5 years. Where'd you been? I'm all about this town. I never knew your name until I saw it on the post. You talk about transparency? Why don't you tell us the real reason you're here in Garner? The party put you here. We know that. Transparency. Why did you take your name off of the people searches? Afraid somebody might find out something about you. I got plenty of money. I could, all it costs is a couple $100 from detectives. And I can find out all I want to about you. You'll leave this town, your legacy will be, you came here, you cheated, Greg, you helped him cheat it. That's the legacy your children will have to endure. Thank you.
Thanks for staying within the time limit. Thank you. And as we said, this is not a debate. This is where we get to air our feelings. Is there another speaker this evening?
No, sir.
No more speakers, and we will move ahead to item E on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. This normally contains some fairly straightforward administrative issues, and as our council members have already seen, the only one on here tonight is approval of the minutes from the last meeting. So this should be pretty straightforward, unless anyone sees a reason to pull that out for separate discussion. We'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
There's a motion by Mr. Stallings, a second by Mr. Vance to adopt and approve the consent agenda. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by nay? Hearing none, that passes unanimously. Thank you. Moves us along to section F, public hearings. And we can read the heading here under legislative hearings. This is a public hearing this evening. And these are legislative hearings which do not require sworn testimony. However, all persons interested in speaking must sign up with the town clerk. Town staff will present a brief presentation, followed by the applicant and other persons who wish to comment on the item will be recognized to speak. Council requests groups of individuals with the same position to designate a representative to speak for the group. And the first item this evening is 1.1, is the Animal Control Ordinance Amendments, as sponsored by our town attorney, Ms. Terry Jones. If you would like to make a comment or two, and I get the feeling you may be ready to pass the podium and the microphone to a certain police captain here.
Yes, Captain Castelline will be doing the staff presentation before you open it up for public comment.
Okay.
All right. So, good evening, Town Council, management, Garner citizens. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak with you again about the animal control amendments. This is a lot briefer discussion than what was provided on the 31st in March. So just a little bit to recap what the process was and why we did this. There was a request came in from Wake County through an interlocal agreement, and that wanted Garner to be more aligned in its ordinance with other municipalities within Wake County. So we're kind of consistent across the board. So it allowed us the opportunity to look at our ordinances and make improvements, provide better guidelines for our officers to make professional decisions when they are looking into these matters. So that's when town staff completed that comprehensive review. And then we proposed these amendments on the 31st to council here during the council session. Some of the revisions that were looked at were the definitions. I'll look into backyard hens, prohibited actions. And when I discussed these are stuff that was already in place in an ordinance. Just some wording was added to make it more clear and understandable, and to provide those better guidelines. So let's go through here our penalties, having the structured penalties, proof of vaccinations, reporting and the symptoms of what rabies is, and then the destruction of a wounded or deceased animal, or an animal that cannot be seized by reasonable means, meaning an animal that may be exhibiting behavior that is dangerous to others. So, and then confinement of animals and the appeal the process related to dangerous animals. So some of the definitions that were broadened, that were expanded for a little bit more clearer understanding, was the abandon, abuse at large, bite, impoundment, owner, and then restraint, right? I think if you had remembered having that actual leash law, not control based upon voice, but actually having a physical leash on an animal to allow for better public safety and control that animal in case it may do something it may not normally do. And then the penalties. It offered a structured guideline to follow related to penalties, related to first offense, second offense, third offense. We always want people to correct these actions, to be more responsible, pet owners. But if they don't, we need to have something in place to help move that along, to make for public safety. And then we discussed the procedures for these hearings. You know, that was that impartial group that meets to talk when stuff is appealed, and added some days in, business days and an appeal process that's consistent throughout Wake County and other municipalities, to allow for that citizen that is involved in this to be heard, and make sure that everything was handled correctly and the fair treatment was given. So as I move into these next steps, before I do that, we had mentioned that with these changes, it allows the officers to have more guidelines to make those professional decisions. But it also allows us the opportunity during these changing times to provide education, not just to our officers, but also the community. And it's not always what these changes are. During those educational opportunities, explaining the why, why these ordinances are in place, and then giving them explanations if they have any questions, and to make more responsible pet owners. So the next steps moving forward was that we received public comments. I believe you guys have received the public comments. We have reviewed those. They were provided by a person. We met with that person and had a conversation about their experiences that they have had, and through that, they also showed support of these ordinances, the changes, and they wanted me to provide that to you, that we had that conversation with them. We discussed different experiences that they had, but after they had reviewed the ordinance and the changes, they were in support of that, and I think they have provided that information to you.
At this time, it'd be appropriate to receive any verbal comments from any members who have signed up.
We don't have anyone who's signed up for this.
Okay, thank you. No one has signed up to speak. We've heard the summary here, and I'll be glad to entertain comments while you're up, Captain. Comments or questions from council members. Let's start with Mr. Vance.
Yes, just thank you so much for your update here. And one question: how are repeat offenders handled today, and what changes with the amendments?
Yeah, so the amendments we're currently repeat offenders are fined. Okay. But with the changes, it allows for a more structured, more fiscal responsibility per se, a higher penalty if there's additional repetition of the behavior that's reported.
Gotcha.
It would allow for a lot better guidelines in assisting with cases where we don't have a lot of repeat people that. But it would assist in those particular.
So you have more structure in.
Yes, a more structured guideline on how that's handled.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger.
There seems to be a theme of safety and community tonight. And so I just want to thank you for this much needed revision of tedium that keeps our community safe. I think that the mayor had mentioned it's kind of our number one function. We got Mr. Avery, who came and spoke, and it's this attention to detail that makes the difference. And I think we've seen what happens when you don't have it, and so it's good to see this change. So just hats off to the police department, hats off to our legal department, and all the hard work that clearly went into this revision. It's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stallings.
Thank you so much for answering my questions at the last meeting, and thank you for these amendments. I know I could ask questions around what if an animal was left in the car, and you pretty much elaborated that it protects the animal from being in a hazardous situation, from giving the officer the authority to make a professional decision on if they need to take the animal out of that situation, or whether the windows may be cracked, and there's a sufficient amount of provision given to the animal. So definitely want to thank you for these amendments.
Okay. I would just add one thing with that. We also have a device that measures the temperature in the vehicle too, so that's taken into account.
Very scientific. Mr. Singleton.
I want to talk about section 3-13, the number to be kept on premises, which is dogs. Is what's stated here under section A, is that what we currently have in the animal control ordinance? No more than 2 pets on a lot, 20,000 square foot or less. Is that new, or is that what we currently have?
That's current, and that's been in the ordinance for quite some time.
Okay. I think I voted against the last ordinance, and the reason I did was because of that, because there's only 2 or 3 people in this room that remember and you were on the council, 2001, 2002 brouhaha over dogs. Mr. Chief Adams may remember that too. Somebody in Cloverdale let the dogs run at night, and it created all kinds of issues. We had in the old town hall 4 straight meetings that were packed. TV was there, it was not pretty. And it was proposed at that time to do 2 dogs or less at any lot. And we had people who had 4 Dachshunds, and it didn't pass. It changed later, but I voted against it, and I voted against this one too, because that person talked to me just a few months ago. He reminded me of that, those dogs that he had, 4 dogs, 4 Dachshunds. And the proposal was he'd have to get rid of 2 of his dogs back then. And so, again, we're looking at 20,000 square foot lots, and there are no new lots, in new homes now in Garner, very few being built 20,000 square feet. And in fact, there aren't that many, period. So I think I voted against the last one because of that. And that all goes back to the issue with what happened in 2001 and 2002, is that people had small dogs, and they couldn't have more than 2 dogs in their house. You know, I was like telling people, if they have indoor cats, they can't have but 2 cats. I mean, you know, if they're indoor, doesn't matter. And some of the pets are indoor. So I'll vote against it just for that, because it goes back to that years ago when we had several people who were very upset that we were going to limit dogs and they had more than 2 dogs. And so I'll vote against it for that, because I've done it before. But anyway, that's the concern, is that I remember what happened over 25. It started in December of 01, went all the way through the first quarter of 02. And it was very lively, wasn't it not?
It really was.
But that's my opposition to that, is limiting dogs. Somebody's got 3 or 4 small dogs in their house. Who can know? And we knew some of it because we saw some of these people walking their dogs. You'd see, there used to be a gentleman down off of Avisboro who had 4 long-haired Dachshunds. They didn't have them any longer, but one time they had 4, so it wasn't an issue. Anyway, that's why I voted against it, because of what I learned years ago. There are some people here who have more than 2 dogs, and would guess most of those lots would be less than 20,000 square feet. So I understand the intent.
Attorney Jones or Captain Castellan, would you like to address this issue in any way?
Yeah, so the next council options are continue a public hearing for additional input, close the public hearing and direct staff to make changes of the ordinance, or close the public hearing and adopt the ordinance as presented.
So if I can add, the amendments, there are no amendments to that particular section, but if council collectively wants a change to that, we can go ahead and make that and bring that back to you at a future meeting.
Okay, that's good input. This is not a new thing. It's something that's been there a while, and apparently 2 decades and more ago, it was an important issue. I'll pass the microphone to Mr. Matthews.
I remember those days well, and the chambers were packed, the lobby was packed, and I asked the mayor at the time, I said, so many people have signed up to speak, and everybody's right. I said, but unless you live in the city limits of Garner, that's the ones I want to hear from. And at that time, there weren't that many, but the press had got wind of it, and it went all over to adjoining counties. It was quite a night, and a lot got out of control a couple of times. But I think the intent back then with the 2 dogs was some people had some of these larger dogs, you know, and they had the Rottweilers, they had some of the bulldogs and different things, and that's why we came up with that number back then. I don't think we took in consideration dachshunds or anything else, but right then it was a hot topic. And if this is something we can tweak, like the attorney said, and I'm fine with that. Other than that, I'm fine with what you've got. Does this align with the county and sister municipalities, pretty much?
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Okay. So if I would,
Just to clarify, it is a restriction on dogs, not the number of cats.
Right, I understood, yeah. And I realize it's just not gonna be enforced unless an issue happens, or someone turns someone in. This is not the police and animal control not driving around knocking on doors, counting dogs in the backyard, so we do realize that. You have more important things to do.
And
Just like with backyard hens, unless you get a complaint, you're not going around counting the hens in the backyard.
And Garner's growing, and I know, like Lake Benson Park and the other parks, everybody likes to let their dogs run and play Frisbee and all that. It's some tough calls sometimes, I understand, but safety is paramount. And so if we need to tweak that one little item, I'm okay with that.
Well, certainly we continue to hear that people are very concerned about their pets. They take this very seriously. With that being said, let's see if there's further questions or comments. Let's start back over with Mr. Vance and see if there's any other question or comment.
For clarity, this amendment is to get us in line pretty much throughout the county with Wake County. Is that correct?
Some of the changes were prompted by that and some by additional research and conversations with the police department about issues that they needed clarification on and also needed to give that professional discretion and oversight to the police officers who are actually dealing with the issues in the field, so to speak.
And the concern that's being brought up that was addressed 25 years ago, why was there any remedy then provided at all?
Any limiting? No, the limitings were taken off. We decided not to limit them back then. That's coming, as it got updated, the limit got put in. That's why I voted against it previously, because the limit got put in because of what happened back then. So that's all. That's just me. I remember.
I asked because I didn't know the history that far back.
Yes. People are passionate about their pets.
Gotcha.
We found out.
Oh, yes, they are.
So my
Mr.
question is, what is the specific change Mr. Singleton and Mr. Matthews are asking for? And is it a change that we could draft, get in writing, and do tonight instead of, or are there some other type of repercussions it may have on the, what language are we looking to add to the ordinance?
Attorney Jones.
Well, I mean, we would be seeking direction from council, but I do believe if we're doing that, we might want to have some additional public comment on that particular, so I wouldn't advise to try to do that tonight and put it into this particular ordinance, but it's certainly, we can bring back another ordinance addressing that section if there's a consensus of council to move forward in that direction.
I guess my question, if Mr. Singleton or Matthews know the language, what language are we looking at?
Originally, it was really aimed more for the larger dogs. At that time, there's a lot of dog fights going on and different things. Y'all remember all that. And people living side of them worrying about kids getting in. The fence weren't high enough, and you got 4 Rottweilers out there or 4 pit bulls. That's why it hit like it did. And so you had to have a minimum size of a lot, and we're only allowed 2 animals. But those were animals I think we were focused on at the time, was that size. But I do understand now that you can go anywhere you want to now and you see the little ones, and that's what they've got. And a lot of those are in-house. So I don't know how we can, if you limit it to 2 large dogs, but all others, you can help me out here. If it's 2 large dogs or a number of small dogs, I don't know how you'd want to word that.
Right, I mean, I think that becomes a difficult thing to define what a large dog is. For instance, if you do it by weight or by breed, then you have to like measure the weight of the dogs, and that would be difficult. And then breed-specific standards are also difficult for officers to really know what the breed is. Captain Castline wants to weigh in further on how you would define the number of dogs by different criteria.
Yeah, so there's so many different types of dogs, right? And unfortunately, from what is out there in public space about breed-specific issues may be, and they may see a dog doing a particular behavior and may think in their head, well, that looks like this type of dog, but it may not be. So I think that's, if you do breed specific, it's hard. And then I don't know how we do weight and all that. So there's some difficulties which may look into more research is needed.
This is what we dealt with back then. It's not no right answers. And there's a lot of emotions gets played into it. And have we had any issues with it written as it's written like it is? I'm fishing here.
I don't have any numbers or anything before me to provide you the best response on that. Not that I'm aware of off the top of my head, but we had 902 animal service calls last year. So
we can just leave it as is and vote on it tonight, and let everybody vote their conscience and move forward. I don't know there's a right answer.
My recommendation would be that we vote what we have, and if we want to do more research and bring it back for another change. I'm constantly trying to think about the resources of our police department and legal department and prioritizing limited bandwidth. So I would be in favor of voting on it tonight. If there is a need or desire to add another amendment or change, bring that back. But let's get what we have into place so that it's changed and updated and provides the transparency, the opportunity for the hearings, all those systems in place that we want for dog owners and all that stuff, just get in place. And if we want to make tweaks later, we can make tweaks later.
I'll support that recommendation.
Okay. Well, thanks. That's a good observation. Captain Castelline started his presentation by saying we have 3 council options. One is to continue the public hearing for additional input, close the public hearing, and direct staff to make changes to the ordinance, or close the public hearing and adopt the ordinance as presented. And just as this one has come back for a modification, it can come back again for modification or amendment as necessary. There has been a lot of work go into this, and there's a whole lot of items in here other than just the number of dogs. So I concur with what you're saying. And Mr. Towns, I think it was your turn to make a comment.
Just for clarification, we're just voting on the amendments as presented, correct? Not an entirely new ordinance.
No, you'll see there's a strikeout underlined version that shows you the entire existing chapter with the changes. But what you would be voting on is subsequent in your packet is proposed ordinance 2026-5382, which shows just the specific sections of the existing chapter that are being amended or being proposed.
So we're voting on the amendments.
Yes.
Tonight. I support what my fellow council members have outlined. I think what we have is good, especially with the expanded definitions, giving officers the professional judgment to make decisions in some of these situations. So I'm supportive of it. I'm also supportive of at a future council meeting as well, having conversations around some of the outlined portions that some of my fellow council members may find problematic at a future council meeting.
Okay, thank you. Continue down the road. Further comments or questions, Mr. Simpson?
Well, I have no problem. I was just gonna let you know why I was gonna vote against it. That's all I was bringing it up for. It wasn't to derail or cause this, that, and the other. Just I'm gonna vote against it because of what lessons I learned back then. I voted against one before. That's fine. I know how it works. So that's the concern is, again, when you say 2 dogs, somebody's got 3 or 4 or 5 small dogs in their house. I mean, that's technically breaking the law. So, that's all. I'm just going to vote against it. I'm just telling you why I voted against it. That's all.
Well, Mr. Singer, also, I would add that the history that you bring up is also good to know as well.
Yes.
It is.
Because back in those days, there were people that the 2 dogs that let run in Cloverdale Night were large dogs. They were mutts. They weren't a specific breed. But that's when pit bulls, it was bad. And we were going to talk about banning pit bulls. Then we learned that you just can't ban pit bulls because of how many different ones there are and the breeds and so forth that are associated with it. It wasn't 2 or 3. It was, 40, 50, or 60. It was very, very intense discussion. I just letting you know why I will vote against it, and that's all.
Mr. Minister, other comments or questions?
No, sir. I'm good to go.
Okay, well, that was a lot of good discussion, a lot of good comments. At this point, I think we can close the public hearing. So we close the public hearing, and I will see if there is a motion from council to take one of the three actions that have been outlined before us.
I move to adopt ordinance 2026-5382.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion by Mr. Vance and a second by Mr. Dellinger to adopt the ordinance. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, let's call for a roll call vote on this. And let's start, if you're in favor of adopting this ordinance as before us now, signify by saying aye, opposed by nay, and we will start with Mr. Vance.
Aye.
Mr. Dellinger.
Aye.
Mr. Stallings.
Aye.
Mr. Singleton.
No.
Mr. Matthews.
Aye.
The motion passes 4-1. There's always room for another amendment, another review as we go forward. This should be a step forward. Thank you very much for the attention paid. People do love their pets, and we do try to protect our community and do try to do what's best for everybody in the final analysis. So good job. And Attorney Jones, if you wouldn't mind, refresh our memory on the amount of time and who did this, kind of an unusual situation. We heard the details of this review at a recent council work session.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, for this opportunity. I'd like to commend our spring legal intern, Amani Henderson, who spent a great deal of time, effort, and research on working on these amendments. She's taking some time out of her exam schedule right now to come and see. She was very hopeful that this ordinance would come to fruition and be adopted and kind of close out this project she worked so diligently on. So we were very pleased and fortunate to have her with us this semester. And as I said, this is something that we haven't had an intern do in the past, is, work this much on ordinances and make a presentation to council and actually see the ordinance get adopted during the internship period.
Excellent.
We are very thankful to her, and I appreciate this opportunity to thank her in public as she is here present today.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, and thanks for the citizen who went to great lengths to give us some other input. People are passionate about their pets, so we want to be cognizant of that. We want to keep an open mind. We're always ready to hear another adjustment as you go through this, whether it's a week or a year. If we need to fine tune this process, that's what we're here for. Thank you, Chief. Thank you very much, Captain.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. And that brings us to item G on our agenda, which is new and old business. Item number 1 is the 2026 National Community Survey results. Our presenter, our sponsor, is our very own Public Information Officer, Communications Director, Rick Mercer, and our Assistant Town Manager, Matt Poler.
Good evening, Mayor Gupton, members of council. It is an honor to be before you tonight to present to you a summary of your 2026 National Community Survey Benchmark Study. Before I begin the presentation, I'd be remiss if I didn't thank the team that helped develop this and deal with our vendor. First off, I'd like to recognize Maury Howe, our Strategic Initiatives Director, her staff member, Lewis Mutter, and then most importantly, our Communications Director, Rick Mercer. So that was the team that worked with our vendor, helped develop the survey, made sure they stay on track and manage the project. It's my honor that Mr. Mercer gets to co-present with me tonight. A lot of times he works behind the scenes in these meetings and people don't get an opportunity to see him. And so it's a great opportunity for him to do this. I would say he led the charge and facilitated most of the communication with the study. A little bit of history about this, if you'll recall. In 2024, the town made a decision to do a national community study. It's the manager's vision that we would use that as a baseline to do benchmarking every 2 years. And so now we're in 2026. It's been 2 years since your 24 study. And so we created a similar study, hopefully an improved, as we will do each 2 years. And we'll start creating benchmarks for the community. So what Mr. Mercer and I will do tonight is to go over a summary of the results of the survey. Just some facts. We hope to give you comparisons between how you compare nationally among local towns, but also where we benchmark internally with 2024 to 2026. So that's what we're here tonight to go over. So for those who are not aware of our 2024 survey in 26, we went with the Polico National Research Center in partnership with the International City and County Managers Association to conduct these two surveys. So this Polico is a research company that we've used. They've conducted over 400 community surveys across the country, and to your table to the right are examples of participating communities in North Carolina. So they're comparable communities to us. So this is an interesting map, and I'll refer back to this later in the presentation as well. Our team decided to focus on 4 areas to attempt to get surveys based on our citizens. And so area 1 is what we would call South Garner, more older established Garner, and this is this red area here. It does also incorporate a newer developed, the New Bethel Church Road area in this quadrant here. Area 2 focused on what I would call the McCullers area, your 401 corridor, where it was in the town's ETJ and is now in the town limits. So this is area 2. Area 3 is what I would call Old Garner. So it is your where historically Garner originated from and began its development. And then you have area 4, which is another pocket growth area, what I would call the Auburn area. So what we did was we attempted to send surveys out into these 4 areas to get information back. To your right, you can see that we selected 3,000 households. A little bit of analytics about the survey. We had 130 returned, so 2,870 residents received invitations to produce the survey. We received 227 responses. That comes back to an 8% response rate. Generally, your response rates are in between 6 and 12%, so we fell in line with national response rates. And what we tried to do, and the next slide will attest to this, we tried to weight responses based on the demographic profile of our citizenry. It has a just basic analytics of a margin of error of 6%. So this is who we tried to target with our survey. We tried to do weighted estimates based on our 2020 census and along with the 2024 National Community Survey. So if you look proportionate, we tried to send equal representation with all 3 age demographics, both genders, ethnicities, and then also during this survey, we wanted to break out our types of housing. So whether they are owner or renter or the housing is attached or detached. So there's a pretty close proximity to each other to try to get to avoid biases with the surveys.
Mr. Poole, I have a question.
Yes.
Can you go back one more slide?
To the map or to?
Yeah, the map.
Okay.
These areas, you all created these in-house.
We did.
And I've done something similar on my own. I think it's a very useful tool for looking at our growth in communities. The only recommendation I would make is to break that South Garner area into its own region, going all the way down to 540.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
We had parameters that we had to pick for. So based on what we were allowed to do with our consultant, we chose to choose these 4. But I agree completely that as Garner grows further towards Johnston County, we need to make sure we're capturing that.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Fair enough.
That was on the parameters of Polico that we picked for how we would target 4 different areas.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, sir. So at this time, I'm going to introduce Mr. Mercer to come up, and he's going to talk about how we compared against national comparisons in other peer communities, and then I'll be back to talk about how we benchmark ourselves in between 2024 and 26.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. So just like in 2024, part of the survey consisted of benchmarking ourselves against all the other communities nationally that do this survey. This year, we did something a little different or additional. We did that national, pool of communities and compared ourselves. We also asked Polco to pull out sort of a subset of communities that were a little more akin to us, in population size, their rates of growth. Not a lot of communities are growing as fast as us, but we wanted that to look at communities that are growing year over year at a pretty good clip. What we looked at, or what our vendor Polco looked at, was where we stood in relation to them. In most areas, we kind of fell within the range of what is considered similar to the benchmark, within a 10-point plus or minus range. There were a few areas where we scored either higher or lower than the benchmark by 10 or more points, and then a small number of areas where we scored much higher or much lower, and that was when our scores were 20 or more points, percentage points, above or below the benchmarks. So this is where we stood above the benchmarks in a few areas. Again, in this chart, to explain it, we have our peers, that subgroup of 27 communities that are close to us in population, growing at a decent clip. And then also the national, the big pool of everyone that they are able to pull data from. Then the last column is a reference to the page in the report where you can see this information. So we actually do pretty well, according to the benchmarks anyway, in terms of cost of living. Our community believes that we're a pretty affordable community overall. With street repair, compared to our peers, we do well. Availability of affordable quality housing. The respondents both compared to our peer communities in that bigger national pool, we did pretty well. Couple areas that we don't directly provide services for, internet, drinking water, we did well. Yard waste pickup, always popular. We always hear, if anything, folks just want more of it. They like it so much. And this next one, we're going to touch on this a little bit later when I talk about the quality gap analysis, but the importance of focusing on the overall design and layout of residential and commercial areas in the coming 2 years is how they asked the question. That was a big priority for our community, and when compared nationally against all the other communities in this that do this national survey, a real big priority. So something to bookmark. We'll come back to that. Availability of affordable quality childcare and preschool, we did well, and just like in 2024, we scored well on the question of attracting people from diverse backgrounds and being generally a welcoming community. So I think that's something we can be very proud of. And then there were these areas where we were below the benchmarks, either the national or the peer benchmarks. Most of these fall into the the area, the facet of community livability that they called mobility, or transportation related things. Our overall quality of a transportation system, ease of travel by bicycle, walking, or whether residents have choose to walk or bike to a destination instead of driving. So, and then that was actually the last slide in the benchmark section, and I'm going to hand it back to Mr. Poole.
Thank you, Rick. So this portion of the presentation, what we want to do is we want to talk about how we measured up from 2024 to 2026 as our town. So this is internal benchmarking, where we improved or did not improve from 24. So when you look at these stats, this is purely how we measured internally against ourselves. And so there were several different core areas of focus. You can see at the bottom of the graph are these areas: quality of life, governance, economy, mobility, community design, and utilities. What we wanted to highlight tonight are what I would consider outliers. Either we did above or below about a 10% range. So if there were 9 points difference, higher or lower, we noted those as outliers, and we brought that to your attention tonight. There are pages and pages of these surveys that you've received, but we did want to highlight a couple areas. Probably the largest increase since our 24 to this 2026 benchmark was our governance, and I've got a slide coming up that will explain that. But overall, citizenry approval of our local government increased dramatically. It went up 17 points. Community design, as Mr. Mercer said, it went down 10 points, so it just fell into that outlier, that outlier of a below average. So these are what we consider significant changes. Other areas that didn't have any significant or outlier changes, but there were increases or decreases, or these other areas too. So you can take a look and see where we improved. In most all areas, we did improve somewhat, or we maintained the standard deviation from the last time. So a couple talking points. One of the most notable trends that we saw as an improvement of 2024 to 2026 is an overall confidence in Garner's government. That study talked about local government and federal government, and your local government confidence increased much higher. So we want to make sure we noted that there was a 17-point increase in the last 2 years of what Citizenry have said overall confidence in our government is. Some of the other areas where we're 9 points or higher that are worthy of noting is our community connection. And so it's interesting that we saw that when Mr. Mercer talked about national benchmarking, but internal we saw that as well. And so all these areas we improved upon internally from 2024. Safety, and we know our public safety does a great job with police, fire, and Wake County EMS. And that's always been recognized by our community, and that was evident here. Another area is solid waste. In the study, solid waste received great feedback on how they're performing. But community connection and safety, these all areas improved greatly. Education, arts, and culture improved. Mobility for as far as carpooling with other adults and children instead of driving alone improved. 3 areas of focus where we decreased was in community design, mobility, and natural environment. And the next slide, I wanted to pick on what I would consider one of our challenges as we grow, that we've got to recognize and understand based on our community. So the second slide of our presentation was this map. This is the same map. And what I want to show is what my opinion of why we are in the place we are when it comes to walkability and bikeability of our community. So I'll use an analogy of Dallas or San Antonio. If you've been to both of those, they are both similar in population, but Dallas is 300 square miles and San Antonio is over 500. So Dallas is much more dense. It has a downtown area. People are able to walk and bike in that type of environment, where San Antonio has a similar amount of population, but much larger in scale. Well, that is what we've become. It's suburban sprawl is what we have. If you look at these 4 areas, we have an area of Garner that is miles from the heart of Garner when you look at the McCullers or the Auburn area. And so as Garner, when you look at it as a community, as urban sprawl, walkability is difficult. We're not a densely populated downtown community. And so that's something that's going to be a challenge regardless. The same thing with your ability to bike across town. It's a large surface area. And so that's one of the challenges. And it can be a strength or a weakness, however we want to quantify it. But I think when you look at 24 and 26, we both had these same areas about mobility. And that's really a reason why. And we've probably created more difficulties by growing the way we're growing, just in these 2 areas of focus here, along with the corridor. So we've got a lot of improvements that we've approved upon, and then we've got some areas that we're still need to focus on. These things help drive our strategic plan and how we develop and grow. So the last piece that we have for you tonight is looking at a gap analysis. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Mercer to talk about the gap between quality and importance.
Hello again. So we're going to look at what POCO calls the quality importance gap analysis. So to put it in simplest terms, this asks questions of the participants in the survey, how important do you see these different facets, and rating them as essential or very important, and then also what kind of a job you think we're doing, rate us excellent, good, et cetera. And then it looks at the gap, right? And so we have pretty big gaps here in a couple of areas, and ideally, in the perfect world, we'd have almost no gap or very small gaps between the importance that the community assigns to a facet and then the job the quality of the job they think we're doing. In two areas, we see pretty big gaps: community design and mobility. And I'll jump to the next slide and talk a little bit more about the community design and mobility. So you remember they asked the question, and we showed it earlier on when looking at benchmarks, rate the importance of focusing on community, residential, and commercial design over the next couple of years. Our community thinks that's a really important thing for us to focus on. So it was rated really high in terms of importance. And then, of course, they also asked, well, how do you think we're doing now? And there was a gap, that 44 percentage point gap between how the importance they assign it and then how well they think we're doing. And that gap has widened significantly over the 2024 survey. In 2024, that gap between importance and quality was 22 percentage points. This year in 2026, it's risen to 44 points, 88% said it's really, really important or essential. 44% this year said it's we're doing either excellent or a good job at managing community design. So that gap has grown, and so it's an area for us to focus on, of course, in the next few years, especially as we're doing a strategic planning refresh. Similarly, with mobility, there's a large gap. It actually narrowed a little bit over 2024, but close to the same. But these are two areas of us to look at and dig into a little deeper and focus on. Takeaways overall, why do we do this? It's an important way for us to gather real actionable data that we can use for budget development, for strategic planning, to think about service delivery and performance metrics and all those things that we're trying to do as we become more data driven. And of course, it's just a way for us to look at ourselves, compare ourselves nationally, compare ourselves to peer communities that are similar in size and growth rates. And then just to kind of rehash some of the most notable things and areas for focus, that increased confidence in our local government, in our municipal government, really went up a lot this year. Something, again, I think to be proud of. And then residents' view overall, as when Mr. Poole showed the slides about how our scores in public safety, which were already very strong, went up quite a bit this year. But overall, residents see Garner as a safe and welcoming community, and I think that's a great message to share over and over and over again. Garner is safe and welcoming to all. And then, of course, that area for focus and improvement, community design and mobility. Finally, next steps, we have actually already posted these results on the website, and we'll continue to use the results in establishing departmental goals, in our strategic planning, and in budget development in future years. I'm going to jump very quickly over to the interactive dashboard that people will be able to find on the website. Actually, a better way, I'll start from here. So if you go to garnernc.gov /NCS, it'll redirect you to here. You'll see these big buttons that these are the PDFs, the results and the supplemental reports. These are PDF documents that I believe you all had in your packet and the public can review. This interactive dashboard is something I just want to take half a minute to glance at. This is pretty useful because it's available on the website as we showed, and what folks can do, you can select a facet, an area, and then get, if we jump down to governance, you can, it'll load up. It'll show you some of the questions that were under that facet, including, things like public information services were in there. So, you could click on that and go, if you scroll farther down on the page, you can also get into a demographic comparison. So if you want to select a subgroup, you can see here it shows how we did by area on that question of public information services. And so my team, for example, could look and say, oh, well, Area 3, that's an area for growth over the next couple of years. And you can use this drop down to select other demographic subgroups and do some cross tabs. So that's a useful tool. I just wanted to point that out to our residents. Also, before I hand it back to Mr. Poole, I wanted to just take the opportunity to thank the rest of my communications team, Ms. Soltz and Mr. Kettler. Also, first and foremost, our residents who participated in this. We don't have a survey without their participation. So thank you to everyone who participated, and be on the lookout for it in 2028. And I will jump back over to
Okay, excellent. Well, we don't have a specific action we need to take on this, but there certainly is room for questions or comments. And let's start with Mr. Matthews this time and run down the line. Comments, questions, sir?
Again, a great presentation. There's a lot went into this, obviously, and pulling these numbers up. And it does give us some ideas where we want to focus going forward, because some things we're knocking it out the park on, and some things has some room for improvement. But having this information and coming from the public means a whole lot. And at least that percentage, we know what they're thinking. And typically those that respond to these have a genuine interest in the town. And it's glad to know they're confident in their government, because we sure try awful hard. So, but great presentation and a lot of valuable data here.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews. And you're exactly right. To identify the areas of improvement is one challenge in itself, but how to maintain those positive interactions and how do we keep those services, that's another task in itself. We've got to make sure we're providing those things to even improve that benchmark. But it's not just where we're falling short, but it's maintaining where we are excelling.
Thank you. Mr. Singleton?
Yes, Mr. Poole, 3,000 invitations one night, that's the same numbers in 24, right?
Yes, sir.
And 227 this time, and how many was it in 24, do you remember?
It was a lower response rate, slightly lower response rate.
Yeah, because it was, I remember y'all said 8 to 10, 12%. We got 8% this time. Last time was a little bit, just a tad lower.
Yeah,
Okay.
and Mr. Mercer was instrumental when we get returned mailings back. He was in constant communication with the company to try to pivot and make some of these changes. So he stayed on top of that throughout this whole process.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stout.
There's 227 last.
Pardon?
227 in 2024.
Okay, yes. Thank you.
Great presentation. Like I said earlier, it's always great to continuously improve. So having these numbers will help us improve, and it's great to see that our residents think that we're doing amazing in some of these aspects of service delivery. So thank you for the presentation.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Dellinger.
Practice my compliment sandwich. Great presentation, great data. And it's impactful and limited in scope, but it's very helpful when you see those deltas, not just from 2024 to 2026, but also with regards to other communities. And we've got to stare directly in the face of our community design problem as a council in a town, because the results are not only not good, they've declined, and they're worse than our peers. That's like the worst of all worlds. We're in the 20th percentile of our peers on community design. And there's some element, it's talking about residential commercial development, but there's some tie to mobility in that too. They're related in some ways. So I think for me, for that particular one, it's looking at it dead in its eyes and saying, we need to get more data on why people think this way. Why do they feel this way? Do we need to do charrettes? What do we need to do? What is it about the community design? There are elements in there. If you go to page 13, shopping opportunities, not good. Place where people want to spend time, 32nd percentile, right? It's like Garner's a great place to live, but I wouldn't want to visit there. That's kind of like what it kind of comes out, right? Where do you go when you're here? So I think this is undergird some of the conversations we've had about commercial development, amenitizing the community. The people are coming. We've laid out the neighborhoods. Now they need places to go and shop and be entertained. maintained and live. And I want to use that phrase, we need to amenitize the community.
Yeah,
That's
Mr.
really
Dellinger,
what
you actually, it's interesting you said that. When we were debriefing as a group, we were talking about what's next steps in our strategic plan, and it's to find the why, right? So if you ask why 5 times, generally you can get to the root of a problem. And so our group talked about how we take this information and then do a deeper dive to the why and create goals and objectives to improve some of this. So I'm agreeing with the why.
And, you know, I'll make one more comment and then we can go back around. I think for me, when I was reading through the data, that community connections piece was powerful. The openness of the community, the welcoming nature of the community. And even more impressive with that increase is the fact that we are growing so fast. What that means is we've been very intentional at getting ahead of this. Because once you lose it and get behind, it's really hard something to catch up on. So that was reassuring, not just from the work that council and staff do and volunteers do, but just the fact that we have clearly leaned in, and even in this 15,000 new people we have in the past 5 years, we're maintaining our character as a welcoming community that values residents of different backgrounds and takes care of vulnerable residents. Those are the kind of things. So it says a lot of the work we've done. So it was actually really powerful to read that. It felt good. I'll go on.
Thank you for the report, very thorough review. But major takeaways for me that public safety remains top priority and that it's imperative that we stay ahead of that. Also, the survey gives a clear roadmap to guide our decisions going forward and to provide how we're going to provide our investments and ensure that we continue to meet the expectations of the community. So it's a great tool to use in our decision-making process. Thank you very much for all the hard work that went into it.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, and I'd like to double down on a tool to use in our decision-making process. That's very important. My one request to all staff, and particularly to you two gentlemen who have spent so much time in this, help us remember what we learned from this. Remind us once in a while, well, the people felt this way about that topic. Well, this was of great importance. They remind us how to use this as a tool in making good decisions as we move forward. That's why we spent this time, why we try to reach out to get some scientifically information from our citizens. And we want to continue to hear from the ones who came, just like the ones who came and spoke tonight, and the ones that we stop and talk to every day, the ones that we receive emails from and calls from every day. We really want the citizens, the residents' input. Thank all of you who have come this evening. Thank you for pulling this together. And with that, I think we'll let you guys sit down and enjoy the next part of the program. Everybody loves parks, unless there's more questions.
I do. I was going to let y'all go back around.
We're always ready for more feedback. Let's jump to Mr. Dellinger.
While we have you, I did want to also, as we continue to do our housing affordability work, look into this data even more closely. So while it may on the surface say that we do have abundance of affordable housing, there are also some data points in there, particularly around the housing costs in Garner are too high for young people and or families. And 77% of people strongly or somewhat agree. So, and then we had the fire chief up here saying that firefighters are living far out, you know, things like this that are in the data. So we don't want to just see what we want to see, but we also want to interpret that as we're doing our housing affordability work and dig deeper into those numbers and really pay attention to them.
Yeah, and I agree. One thing we talked about, and even with the housing conversations, is education, right? So we hear a lot about the school system, but as a local government, what we saw is our affordability of child daycare and child care was actually very high for us in that community. So that's something to be proud of, because when you are looking a house to buy, you're looking at the school system, you're looking at daycare and all those things. And so it looks like some tools or some areas of our town are working for that. And that was something that I think we were surprised to see based on general, community feedback about the school system. So I agree.
That's all I've got.
Thank you. Well, yes, and while it is important for citizen input, we also like input from elected officials. Sorry if I cut it off too short, and let's go by the order in which people raise their hands now. Mr. Singleton.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I talked about well-planned residential growth in neighborhoods, and they have both dropped, particularly designed neighborhoods. I remember it was about 4 years ago, I started hearing from people of subdivisions that we approved years before that, where we had no open space in the neighborhood, and they were packed. And I had people come up to me and say, look, I bought a house down here. The first 4 or 5 were in the South Garner area. Our neighborhood has nowhere for our kids to play. The only open space is the riparian buffer, which falls down in the creek. And why did y'all do this? And I'm like, that's a good question. And I voted for it. And so I remember talking with Mr. Triesenberg and then talking about where my office is behind Garner Family Physician and the townhomes there was nothing, and the kids were playing on the open lot. And I took pictures and video and showed him, and that open lot behind Garner Family Physicians, Neighborsville Square. And said, we need these in neighborhoods. How do we do this? So I brought it to the council. It took some time. In the last two and a half years, they have been incorporated in all residential neighborhoods. But those neighborhoods, as we know, have to be approved and take a year to get started with permits and 2 or 3 years to get people in them. So I just think sometime on some of the neighborhoods, maybe some of that impact is, hey, we got a nice neighborhood, but guess what? There's no place for my kids to go. And depending on where they are, I told the people at the townhomes beside us that, South Garner Park is over here. They said, yes, but our kids are 8 and 9, and we don't want them riding the bike down there by themselves, which I understand. And so I wonder if that is some of the neighborhood stuff. Who knows? Maybe some people are used to having more than 2 ways in and out of a neighborhood. I don't know. But I do remember that, years ago, hearing from people talking about not having the open space, and thank goodness that's been incorporated. And maybe that is a part of it. But as Mr. Dellinger asked about getting more detail, if that's possible, I don't know if that's possible, but that can always help us in how we figure what we're doing with the Unified Development Ordinance.
And we talked about feedback of, how we can improve just education and messaging to our citizens. So, for example, about the open space, we don't think a lot of residents know that the Parks, Recreational, Cultural Resources Advisory Committee, when a developer comes into town, looks at the amount of land versus money that it's contributing to a park or to maintain our parks. And so that's a piece that maybe we need to do a better job of educating that's already an existing resource that you've put in place.
Thank you.
Excellent. Other comments, questions? Thank you. This will be a work in progress for a long time to come. This is a tool that we will use to help make good decisions. Thanks again for the great input.
Yes, sir.
And now we'll move along to what we really like to hear about is parks. And here comes the Jurgen Park operations update. We're going to call on our sponsor, Ms. Maria Munoz Blanco, and her team to bring us up to date on this item.
Microphone just shocked me. Good evening, Mayor, Council. Delighted to be here to hopefully bring you some good news about Jurgen Park. This is one of the most exciting projects that our department has been involved for about 5 years now, I think. So we're really close to the goal line, and we're really excited about that. Joining me today, it's Zach Pritchard, who's our superintendent of recreation and athletics, and Eric Anderson, who's the program manager, who will be the on-site manager for the park. Arrows, I'm an arrow user here. So a little bit about the agenda for tonight. I'll try to be fairly brief in the interest of time, but I wanted to give a bit of a background on the project, particularly for those who are at home who may not be familiar with the project, and then we'll give you a sort of general oversight of the park operations and talk to you about the proposed fee schedule. So as you may know, Jurgen Park, the land was acquired in 2019, and the town undertook a master planning process between 2019 and 2020, ultimately adopted by Town Council in May of 2021. There were multiple work sessions, Town Council meetings, stakeholder meetings, meetings for athletic partners, online surveys. A lot of community input went into that master planning process. And Jurgen Park is one of the key projects, as you recall, of the 2021 Park Bond and we have been able to leverage Park Bond with some grant funds to, again, augment the funding available for the construction of the park. The image in this slide is the adopted master plan for the park. And this is a bit of a timeline, again, for historic documentation. And if you look at the pictures at the bottom of the slide, the extreme left is how the park used to look, or the site when we acquired the land. The middle one shows the grass fields as they were planted, and they're looking lovely these days. And the picture to the right shows the parking as it has been completed, the natural grass fields in their dormant stage this winter, and then you can see the sort of work that has been going on in the turf fields in the back of the property. And if you look at this today, it would look significantly different as those turf fields have advanced tremendously in their construction. And we're still on target to open this park late summer, early fall. We're targeting September. And this is what it's being built. Again, phase 1, as a reminder, 2 natural turf fields, 2 artificial turf fields. We have a lovely picnic shelter, very large. We have what will be a really fun playground. And as you can see in this image, there's plentiful parking for the facility. Bringing you back to the master plan and the pro forma, one of the components of the master plan was a pro forma that sort of provided some guidance as to how the park, the framework for the park future operations. One goal was to become a regional destination that would provide some really exciting opportunities for athletic tournament play, but we also wanted to provide high quality athletic experience for our community. We also wanted to further develop the unique brand and identity of Garner. As you know, we are a town that really loves youth sports, and this park will have a role in that. Our plan was to manage the park as the owner and operator, using contracted services needed. And then we were looking at a good mix of sports as it relates to tournaments, local league play, conditioning and fundamental clinics, as well as some sports camps. The logistics of it, typically tournaments are weekend activities, Friday to Sunday, and then we would use the rest of the week for local activity and then some transition days maintenance to make sure that we maintain those fields in top-notch condition. And again, we want to be market-driven as it relates to the fees that will be charged for the use of the park. General operations. All our parks are open by town code from sunrise to sunset. That's our general policy. And obviously, if there's athletic activity, the parks that have lights, they stay open until the game or the practice or whatever's happening on the field concludes. And then the amenities, the picnic shelter, the restrooms, and the playground will be accessible when the park is open to the public. For the athletic fields, again, we want to be very mindful to maintain the quality of the fields and accommodate multiple uses for tournaments. So typically we'll have regular operating hours. We tend to be open a little bit longer during the summer as the sun sets much later. It allows for people to partake in sports later. And then Saturday and Sunday, pretty sure that we'll have a lot of scheduled activities. One thing that we want to make sure is that the field use will require a reservation. And we're going to be scheduling similar to what we do at the GRC with open gym. We plan to have some open play hours to make sure that, again, there is some access, not necessarily access control, but we want to make sure that the fence fields don't become dog parks, which is a problem that we see in some of our other facilities. And then the picnic shelter will be available for rental as needed when there's no other activities booked in the facility. For all our parks, as you know, we have a really good partnership working with the Department of Public Works, where there's different sort of activities in park management. Some we take care of, some Public Works takes care of, and this slide just gives you a general idea of how we sort of see the collaboration and the key responsibilities that fall on each department. And I'm going to ask Zach to talk to you a little bit about the local programming opportunities that they have been researching, and then sort of go into the fee schedule that we're recommending for the park.
Thank you, Maria, and thanks, excuse me, everybody, for the time, and looking forward to sharing, what we've got planned come up here, hopefully later this fall. We did a cross analysis of our market and looked at some new opportunities for us to really expand some of our existing programming, looking at some adult leagues. There are several different opportunities that we have where we're not competing with our program partners. For looking at like the adult leagues for flag football, kickball, soccer, ultimate frisbee. Most of these fall in line with the spring and fall schedules. We allow that open time in the summer where we should be busier with the tournament play. At that point, we're really doubling down on that spring fall season for those type of play, just because people will be around. People won't be on their vacations, and hopefully we're driving that tourism through that tournament play in the middle of the summer. We're also going to be investigating the emerging and niche sport development. One of the unique challenges that we have is that we do have a lot of program partners, and we highly value their programs, and we're excited to see them continue to have growth. But we also know that there's an opportunity for us to start hosting some more programming of our own. We have opportunities to look into lacrosse, ultimate frisbee, field hockey, cricket. There's a lot of different opportunities we have with the structure that we have at the facility, with the artificial turf and the way that that's set up. We are able to do a lot of additional play just due to the fact that we're not as concerned about maintaining those surfaces, because they're designed to be a little more multi-use, used a little more frequently and more heavily than the grass fields, which will need some additional maintenance and care. We also have some opportunities to look into looking at the speed and performance camps. CrossFit's still a major player in the fitness industry. They're often looking for places to do some annual regional competitions, hosting different camps, different clinics, things like that, to help prepare our student athletes and our adults who want to participate at the next levels. Also looking at some unique things. Because like I mentioned, the turf is so versatile, we can do things like portable targets for disc golf, air badminton, different backyard sports, cornhole, wiffle ball, the fun games that we used to play growing up too. We can also put out there at the park. So this slide represents kind of the transition into our fee structure. Several different things here. So first, the top section reflects the price point for an hourly rental for just a Garner nonprofit. One of those local groups are looking to use it on a weekday or weekend. And as you guys follow through the flow chart there, really I want to focus more heavily on the tournament side, which is that bottom half of the grid. Those represent really the lifeblood of what we're going to be doing. As Maria mentioned, the Wake County Tourism Grant that we received has very specific terms for what we have to achieve in order to meet or exceed their expectations. We have 350 special event days as listed by theirs, where we're driving economic impact, driving tourism, and bringing people back to Garner. So as such, we've developed a strategy in coordination with Greater Raleigh Sports, and they are really the measuring stick that we have working with Wake County. That group reviews and analyzes the different fee structures of not just our own facilities, but all of the different sports and tourism facilities across the region. And they're typically really involved in the booking and the hosting side. So they're very familiar with the finances related to this. The proposed numbers that you see in front of you today are in line with the industry standard as presented by Greater Raleigh. What we found inside of this is you're going to be receiving a full 4-field package. Basically, you have all day. We're going to try to do it turnkey as possible, so that everybody has an opportunity to show up, come play their games, and get in and out throughout the day. We're not trying to nickel and dime beyond that. We're just here to play the games. Like I mentioned earlier, we've benchmarked these against places like Pleasant Park, WRL Soccer Park. So two of the larger competitors in our market with similar structure and size. Like I mentioned, 350 days of events that we need to have. Those events must draw people from a 50-mile radius. So we're trying to create a system where there's more heads and beds inside the area, people going to restaurants, people going and spending their time and their leisure time here in Garner. So like mentioned, the strategic rental structure that we have, we've identified 2 different tier points to help us achieve our goals related to this tourism grant. What the measuring stick is for our overall development is how can we prove how many people we're having coming from these areas. The industry standard is to go to the hotel data, work alongside folks like Greater Raleigh, and get that hotel data for these groups. In order to do that and help incentivize folks to come in, a lot of organizations, and we are proposing being like many of them as well, is presenting different rental rate rebates. These rebates would be structured in a way in which an organization presents us 100 to 250 room nights. We'll give them a 20% rental rebate on the back end of their tournament after we have done the due process of checking and verifying data. On the flip side, if you bring a bigger event in, 250 a night or more event in, we'll give you 50% off those rates. When we did the comparable analysis of our overall expenditures and operating costs, that was in mind as we built this. And then, so just leading into kind of what's next for us as we keep diving in. Next couple weeks, we'll be working on getting some folks hired. Obviously, we brought Eric on here in October. We have another 4 specialists that will be helping support him, serve as league coordinators, event coordinators, help support the operation there. We'll also look at part-time supplemental staff as well as we get to that point. Obviously, working on developing our marketing and communication plans. Today was an important day for us, so we can start getting some of that materials together so we can start moving forward with some of our ideas and our perspectives that we need as we start to plan and develop these programs. We have continued to work on our relationships with Greater Raleigh Sports Alliance. We've started to build those networks. We're starting to get an idea of what opportunities we have that we might be able to get into. Is it working with existing soccer clubs? Is it having some regional groups come in that are new to the area? We've got opportunities there. As Maria mentioned, we are targeting a late summer, early fall grand opening. So we're starting to just have those early level discussions. And then hopefully as we get the timelines together, we can start launching our programming. So with that, pass it back to Maria.
And we included as appendices here a lot of the data of the sort of comparable other park systems and their various rates for the use of athletic facilities. So again, we're really excited. This is a labor of love for many town staff. You all may see us here, but building this park has involved extensively the team from the engineering department, the budget office, and the finance director who needs to sort of make sure that we have money to pay our general contractor. I'm sure there's many more people, obviously the town manager's office, and certainly the support of this council to make this park a reality for the community. I know it's been a long time dream, and we're almost there. So happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Wow, fantastic information, great news, coming in right on schedule. Clearly, there's a lot more goes into running a park than just putting some grass out there. A lot of thought goes into how do we get people here, how do we pay for it. Thanks for all the good work you've done. Let's take a round of questions and comments. Let's start with Mr. Vance at this end.
I was just say that it was a very encouraging briefing. There was a lot of progress that's been going on. To drive by it periodically to see everything that's happening. I would love to see a flyover, but I may not get that. But anyway, love to see a flyover with a drone. But I'll wait. I'll wait until for the grand opening. like I say, I also appreciate all the hard work of the staff and all the partners and what you're doing to make this park a success. Looking forward to it. I know that we have a council led by Mr. Singleton and his support of the parks of situation within the town to be one where families can come together and just have a great time. And this is no doubt going to be a place for that portion of the northern portion of Garner, which is going to be a great gathering place as Garner continues to grow. But keep up the good work.
Excellent. Mr. Dellinger.
I'm trying to get some clarity on the grant piece, the compliance piece. So it's 350 planned event days within a 7-year period. Is that how that breaks down?
Yeah.
I'm reading.
Yeah, so it is 700. It's 350 over the 7 years, but there are projection targets that we have to hit and maintain throughout. So we actually have to hit and stay within a deviation of 50 per year through that 7. If we go above that, they're happy. They're super happy. We're great, good shape. If we start trailing, put us out of the development plan and move forward.
So 50 planned events. Is there a size? Here where my questions are going. How much time will the fields be used for outside events versus recreation for residents?
So it's 50 event days that are sort of, they consider an event day depending on the number of hotel rooms. So that sort of tier 1 number would constitute 1 event day. We just have to track that information and give to them. But typically tournaments would only happen on the weekends. There's going to be very few instances where there will be tournaments that are booked for the entire week. I mean, it's typically travel sports is weekend based, but so there will be time. We certainly are planning to as we schedule the facility, early part of the week would certainly be for local play, whether it's league, whether it's adult league or a partnership with, I don't know, Raleigh lacrosse or Garner lacrosse or whatever sport comes into play for the fields.
Yeah, okay, that helps, but it's a high volume weekend use for outside.
Yes.
Okay. Also, I'd like to see like a breakdown of that revenue and then the actual operating costs of the park to see how close we are to a break even. I doubt we are, but it would be helpful to kind of see understand what you're doing. I'd like to see those numbers and how that actually works in sort of getting the park to pay for itself. That's why I asked a question about use by residents who are paying on the bonds for the park. They want to be able to use the park. So that'd be helpful just to kind of see full operating costs and revenue generation and what that balance is.
Yes, we can put that together.
That'd be great. Thank you. I've got a couple more questions, but I'll pass on.
I have a question. It's kind of along the same line of Mayor Pro Tem Dellinger's. When it comes to park basic operations, it says open play hours will be scheduled based on run on demand, facility preparation, and maintenance needs. Will there be set free play, open play hours during the week, or will it be sporadic?
No, I think that's our goal. At the Garner Rec Center, we have what we call open gym. That obviously sort of structured hours that are set for, say, pickleball from 10 to 12, or whatever is the appropriate sport, volleyball, basketball, badminton that we do now at the GRC. So we plan to do something similar. We couldn't call it open gym because it's not a gym, but it'll be sort of, I don't know, we have to come up with a catchy title, open field, so that people would know that if they want to, I don't know, kick the ball with their nephews and nieces, they can show up on Tuesday between, 5 and 6 or whatever's the time that we, and we'll post those schedules as we do for open gym so the public can become familiar of how they can participate in the park at their leisure.
Thank you for that. And I definitely do appreciate us looking at some of the niche sports. I know we've heard from residents about the appreciation for offering badminton. So definitely want to thank y'all for that. My last question will be in terms of, and it's very oddly specific, but in terms of, I know we said we want to look at CrossFit style programming. Is that equipment that we currently have, or will we have to purchase that equipment if we went that route?
So some of that is stuff that we'd have to purchase. but also there's groups that would come in and partner. So there's opportunities to go both directions on that.
Most definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singleton.
Yes, I think everyone knows how I feel about the Jurgen Park. Glad to see it coming to fruition. We started on it many years ago. Talked with Mr. Jurgen about, the availability of the park came here, so it's great to see it moving forward. It looks good out there. I know this isn't in relation to the new water restrictions, but the grass fields are sprinkler, correct? They are, okay. That's what I thought. Just want to make sure. And some people may ask why we have two grass and two synthetic, is having been here for years and helped coach soccer and work, and mainly the kids that we coach were at South Garner. And at times there would be 3 teams practicing on the same field at one time. The last team I had was freshmen through seniors in high school, and we practiced as a girls group that was 14, 13-year-olds, a younger boys group, and you had 3 teams on the field at once. So you rotated, one team took half the field, the other 2 teams took a quarter of the field. And so the need for field space was great, and at South Garner Park, it has a wet spot that's been there for years. Everyone that's familiar with South Garner knows where the wet spot is. And so when it rained, a lot of those practices would get canceled. And so it was, hopefully having a couple of synthetic parks will help with practice, and teams will be allowed, to practice on those fields if there is rain. And people, I think, have a mistake of thinking, well, synthetic fields have no maintenance. Synthetic fields have a lot of maintenance. You have to clean them. You have to do a lot of things to them. And they have a lifespan of so many years. But anyway, I'm looking forward to it. Thanks for the detailed information. Thanks for the comparison to other parks, because I've been at most of those. And there's some really nice facilities in the area, and this will be another one of those. And maybe one day, after phase 1 gets done, maybe one day when phase 2 starts, we'll have the tournament field, that other additional grass field, along with the big round field, whatever that may turn out to be. So thank you for the information. It's looking forward to it opening here in the next 6 months or so.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matthews.
Yes. When we're talking about grants and what have you, this is coming from county, is that correct?
Yes.
Having been served up there, and part of that, giving out that kind of money, I know they look at these numbers, the revenue is there, and first come, first served, and getting some people to help you out a little bit, so to speak, can help you on that. I like the economic development portion, because events and what have you with our hotels, our restaurants, all the things going on in Garner, that packages can be put together with these teams, whether it's soccer or any number of sports where people are coming in and get them for the whole weekend. That could be a tremendous draw, offset a lot of the costs, and be a big economical boost. So I don't know if you're going to coordinate with our economic development team, or how you got a game plan for that, because it'll book up and develop fast, because word does get out, and they're already doing that all around the county, Marshville and different areas. So to have a signature event that they want to do every year, they want to book up 300 rooms, and we're going to get them a package and what have you. So I think being proactive on that's going to be really important. It's going to be a full-time job, just about, just managing that portion of it. And like Grace says, as the park expands even more, if other things, whether it's cricket, field, or whatever, those demands will still be there. So it's a great opportunity here, and what we do with it. So therein lies the challenge, but nothing that can't be handled if it's planned. But thanks for the presentation. Very good.
Thank you.
Good questions, and let's come around again in case you thought of another question or comment. Mr. Vance.
Yes. How are you ensuring the safety of the park? Sometimes you have situations where individuals are in the park at odd hours and things of that nature. And what type of plan is being thought about or in place for that?
So, so the parks, I don't know if you have noticed at Lake Benson Park, we have installed automated gates to sort of physically close the park for parking at the end of the day. And in this particular park, there will be more security cameras than we have in other parks.
Are the current resources sufficient to manage the park effectively once it opens up?
I believe so.
Believe so?
No, yes, we do. As part of the pro forma was to sort of develop the staffing model for the facility. And thinking of this being a 7-day operation, our idea or the approach for staffing was to have one full-time manager, Eric, and then we'll have 4 coordinator level positions that will sort of be there day to day, and that would allow us to again operate and have a full-time staff at the park 7 days a week to again address both whether it's a tournament or whether it's local play. Whenever we need, for example, if we need to augment the staffing complement because we will have to be assisting with, I don't know, parking for a tournament, that's when our ability to hire part-time staff in the sort of as the park comes into play, we'll be able to address that. And then Public Works will have dedicated staff that will be just taking care of that park. And I'm sorry I don't have the number of staff that Public Works has. But again, it's part of the development of the operations that our Public Work Director, Forrest Jones, has been working on.
So you don't see a problem with staffing of the park?
I do not.
Thank you. Mr. Dellinger.
I have a question on the site plan or overlook on page 6, I think. Yeah, is that the most recent layout for the park? Is that the final?
Yes. So there's actually, yes. A is the bigger overlook, but there's another one that doesn't show here that it's kind of, I guess I can do this. Nope. Yep.
I have a question.
This one's an overlook, and then there's a tiny, tiny one here.
I have a question because I look back at sort of the original master plan for the park, and what I'm seeing in this rendering is looks like we've lost 2 to 3 acres of trees for stormwater management or control centers that wasn't in the original master plan. That is interesting, but it probably was necessary and required. My question, though, is if that's the situation for the first phase, and there was a large storm control measure on the backside of phase 2, what are the implications for what we've learned on storm water management on phase 1, and what potential impacts are there on phase 2 and what can be done in phase 2?
I think there were conversations as the design progressed about whether the stormwater measures for phase 1 could handle phase 2. And because of the topography and the way water moves and the way this side is sort of not the flattest one, they could not address phase 2 stormwater on these particular ponds. So whatever phase 2 stormwater needs are will be very dependent on whatever is built on phase 2. One advantage that we actually got here in this project, at some point in the design of this facility, the state legislature changed some stormwater code to allow for artificial turf not to be considered an impermeable surface. So we were able to really not have to build more because those fields have underneath some suitable stormwater management stuff. That was one advantage.
I would recommend, because I think you're talking about a revenue model for the park. And so then you have a question of what does the revenue model look like when you have phase 2, and does it make it even better? And it probably does. But then you start looking at maybe the configuration changes or amenity changes you'll need to make with the stormwater considerations. I was hoping you were saying we took care of part of phase 2 with phase 1, but that's not what you said. So I think the sooner rather than later, looking at what phase 2 looks like and how much land we're going to lose, useful land and tree preservation, which is what we like about parks too, what that reconfiguration might look like. Because it's a significant, like I said, what would you guess, 2 or 3 acres of additional stormwater land being taken up for stormwater?
I don't know, but I can get you a number from our design team. I do know that for the rest of the property, there are 2 blue line streams. So there will always be fairly robust buffers. There's also some pretty steep ravines around those streams. So phase 2 in terms of development will likely be much less in terms of footprint than this.
And I would just encourage us to kind of look at all options for stormwater management. Some that might be more expensive might actually be better if we're preserving land that we can use to make money. So don't just kind of go with the cheap option and say, this is what we need to do. But let's say when phase 2 starts, let's as soon as possible sort of look at that element. That's all.
Yeah, good question. Stormwater control, that's the new infrastructure. We have to look at it. We have to keep thinking about it. Thanks for bringing that up. Mr. Stallings?
No questions.
Mr. Singleton, second round.
Yes, sir. The improvements along East Garner Road, including the curb and gutter and the walkway. The walkway will basically go to the sidewalk of the existing townhome, White Oak Townhome Villas. And then whenever the Jones Sausage Road project is done, that'll be on Garner Road from Jones Sausage Road down. There'll be curb and gutter and the walkway will go all the way down there. The sidewalk will be improved to a walkway down to that intersection, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm looking at engineering for that answer.
Yeah, I thought that was the case, but this will have a 10-foot walkway in front of it, correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, I just want to make sure. I thought that was the case, that the additional improvements along Garner Road wouldn't happen until they fall into the Jones Sausage Road project. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Matthews?
Nothing else, sir.
Okay, need another round, Mr. Dillinger? Okay, well, great. That's a lot of great information. This will be a work in progress as well. Just because we start playing ball doesn't mean we're finished thinking about it. You'll be refining this as you go. Thanks for the great work that you've done there.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We look forward to setting a date for our ribbon cutting.
I know, we're so excited about it. We'll let you know. You'll be invited for sure.
All right, thank you. We appreciate that. We maybe even run a lap. Who knows what we'll do. It's about 12 after 8. We typically take a recess at 8. We will take a expedited 8-minute recess if we would be back in here at 8:20, please. We have some very important items on the remaining portion of the meeting tonight. Thank you. And we're back in session. Thank you for hustling back from our recess. And we pick up where we left off. We'll come now to updates to council, section 8. Item number 1 is committee reports. And let's recognize council members with any committee reports. Let's start with Mr. Matthews.
Don't have a committee report at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Mr. Singleton.
No, sir.
Mr. Stallings.
So the Garner Youth Council met on April 15th, Wednesday last week. I was upset because I wasn't able to make that meeting because of a mandatory work obligation. But currently, they're preparing for their executive board elections that will happen in May, and doing great work in their committees. The Downtown Garner Association met on April 9th in preparation for the April food truck rodeo that me and my wife thoroughly enjoyed attending. Got to enjoy some ice cream and cake and deviated from my diet, but I don't regret any of it. As well as the Parks and Rec Committee, we met yesterday at the GPAC. The Parks and Rec Committee didn't have quorum, but they toured the facility, the GPAC, as well as Avery Street. But there were some questions and comments from members in attendance around the struggle for them to make quorum, and with there possibly being a possibility for us to consider having alternate members on the advisory committees, so that if a member is removed for non-attendance, there is already a vetted member there with no voting rights that's ready to fill that void. So that's something that they thought we could possibly consider in the future.
Good idea. I like it. And I second your motion on the food truck rodeo. My wife passed it off as her family reunion. Instead of her cooking, she took them all downtown and said, "You can get whatever you want." It was a big hit. Mr. Dellinger.
I don't have a report, but in response to Mr. Stalling, I'd say if you could reduce those concerns to writing and send them to the nominations committee, that'd be really helpful for us.
Yes.
Most of them.
Excellent. Mr. Vance.
So yes, I'll also say the food truck rodeo was great. I had a good time. The weather was fantastic and a great variety of food and a lot of activities for the families as well. Just like to say that the nomination committee has started the interviews for the various boards and commissions that have openings, and we will continue to interview for the applicants we currently have that will be before us this week.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And that brings us to item 2 under updates. That would be manager report.
Yes, good evening, Mayor, members of council. We have 3 reports for you this evening. First is our quarterly financial report, and I'll ask Mr. Beck, our Chief Financial Officer, if he'll come and briefly review with you the quarterly report.
Thank you, Ms. Miller. Good evening, Mayor and Town Council. You had the Q3 financial report in your agenda. I hope you've all had an opportunity to look at that in advance of tonight's meeting. Just wanted to hit a few highlights for you, and then glad to answer any questions you may have. So on the revenue side of things, I think we're in fairly good shape. Property tax revenues are tracking really close to what we budgeted. And so I think we will hit our budget target possibly with a small surplus in property tax revenue. That is slightly different than what we've seen in recent years, where we budget conservatively with our tax collection rate, and we've had some larger surpluses in that line item because of that. But it's a more challenging environment right now for Wake County to make those collections on the taxes, and so the collection rate is coming down a little bit. It still puts us in good shape budget-wise as far as our conservative approach to that, but just wanted to bring that to your attention that we benefit greatly from the relationship with Wake County. They do a tremendous job collecting taxes, but it is a tough environment for them right now, and that historically high collection rate has come down just a little bit, and that does make a little bit of a difference for us on our bottom line. A couple of other revenue streams I wanted to mention. One is investment earnings. That continues to be very good for us, to outpace our budget projections. I think, we've all seen in the news that it was expected that interest rates would be going down, and the Federal Reserve would make a number of interest rate reductions, and they did that, and then that's kind of paused. So we've benefited from that with our investments, that the interest rates have not come down quite as quickly as maybe what was anticipated. So that's been a strong revenue stream for us. And sales tax, we've sort of settled in at probably what in most years would be a normal growth rate for sales tax, which is in that 4 to 5% range for Garner. We obviously had some years with historic growth during COVID and post-COVID, but it's kind of settled back into that normal growth rate now. And like I said, we're at about 5% year-over-year growth in that line item right now. On the expenditure side of the equation, I think we're in good shape there. Departments continue to do a really good job managing their budgets, staying within their means. And I think budget-wise, we're in good shape on the expenditure side of things. Obviously, everyone's seen the news and you know, feels the volatility in the economy, the national economy, worldwide economy. And so we're taking all those things into consideration as, you know, now we're into the fourth quarter of the fiscal year. Obviously, budget work is underway, and we're finalizing a recommended budget for town council. But it is a challenging environment, and obviously we're trying to be wise and conservative and prudent with our budget projections. But did want to let you know it is challenging right now. It's very difficult to kind of predict where things are going to go. With sales tax, with prices on certain goods, fuel, things like that. And so just to let you know that we are monitoring all those things, taking those things into consideration, not only as it impacts the current year financials and budget, just to make sure that we you know, manage things well to finish out this fiscal year, but also as we look to next year and preparing a budget for that we're keeping a close eye on those things, and we'll have a budget that takes that into consideration to present to you. And Mr. Mayor, that's all I had as far as comments. I'm glad to answer any questions you or council may have.
Okay, yeah, let's start with Mr. Matthews for questions or comments.
Thank you for that report. I do look forward to the quarterly report. People a lot of times say, well, you in government, with issues happen with other towns, how are we? I said, you ain't got to worry about Garner. We're just fine. I said, we've got so many checks and balances like your report, our management team, Davenport, looking at what we do. And if a dollar's in the wrong place, we'll try to find out where it's supposed to be. It's not missing, just where it goes. But that's reassuring, but and being cautiously optimistic. You got to prepare, because who knows what tomorrow is going to bring with oil and everything else. It's setting something waiting to happen one way or the other. And most certainly oil drives just about everything one way or the other. So thank you for the report and being cautious, because, you know, it's kind of tough times now. So you guys got your hands full, so keep on doing what you're doing.
Thank you, Mr. Singleton.
Yes, thank you. As always, Mr. Beck, the sales tax numbers are interesting in that the first month of July, all three of the different sales taxes all had double-digit growth, and then after that, they're almost like dropping off a shelf. And you're right, averaged out a little over 5% of what we've done so far. So it's consistent through the rest of the 6 months. You know, that's 5%, better than not 5%. So thanks for the information as always.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Stallings.
Thank you for the presentation and the information.
Yes, I have a question in our packet, page 204, the statement of revenues and expenditures, and just wondering if there's some sort of balloon expenditures we can expect. I'm looking at Public Works in the budget, 18 million. The actual to date is 10.9, which is a delta of 7.1 million. And then Parks and Rec budget 4.6 million, actual to date 2.6, which is about a delta of 2 million. 60% of the budget spent for Public Works and only 56% for Parks and Rec. And we only got 3 months left in the year.
Yeah, I don't think there's any, you know, one particular line item that's standing out in those departments. Regarding like Public Works, it's fairly consistent across some of their divisions, like solid waste, for example. That's a monthly invoice that's pretty large. Typically, the cost of that resets on a quarterly basis based on the number of units they're serving and things like that. there have been, some staffing challenges as far as filling positions. We have like the positions for Jurgen Park, that were hired in advance of that park opening. Some of those positions have taken a little bit longer to fill, so there's some lap salary money that you're seeing there. But there's not any particular large looming expenditure to come that would impact, one or two particular line items.
That's sort of my question. So through 9 months in Public Works, $10 million has been spent, with $7 million left in the budget. So throughout the year, that's a $1 million per year spend rate. On that spend rate, 3 more months, there's $4 million. Is that what we're saying, is that by the end of the fiscal year, we'll have a surplus of $4 million in Public Works?
I probably needed to look at the detail a little bit closer to answer that for you, but I do know some of what you see there with the budget number, that's the revised budget. So we do have expenditures that roll from the prior year into the new year. Sometimes those projects will carry out longer, some that has to roll again. So there's some of that you see as far as original budget versus revised budget that kind of inflates that potentially a little bit when you're looking at budget to actuals, but I'll certainly take a closer look at that and follow.
So I'm curious on that one in the Parks and Rec. I know we did significant budget increases last year in preparation for Jurgen. It's not going to open until the next fiscal year. So I'm looking, is there money there? One, this is my question. Is there money there that we should be looking at as we have our budget discussions? And two, did we over budget last year? And if we did, does that mean our base budget that we started this budget with incorporates that over expenditure of funds, and we're building on top of an already inflated budget?
Right.
Okay. So this is going to be a point of conversation when we get into our budget conversation. If we've over budgeted Parks and Work by $4 million, Public Works by $4 million, and Parks and Rec by $1 million, then we need to look at what our base budget was and start taking money out of there, because we've already over budgeted. And so I think we're not in as bad a shape as we may have thought we were, but I think we also need to evaluate how we're approaching our base budget approach to calculating and formulating our budget, because we're starting at what looks like to me, just based on this, an inflated floor as we start this year's budget. Because if we go into this next year's budget, you got $5 million surplus, you shouldn't have started your base budget so high. So I think that'll be part of our conversation, I think, during the budget retreat, is what's still left to come out of here that, like you're talking about, these adjustments and actuals and all that. But then we need to sort of look at how we're approaching our budget. I think we may have just started with the budget too high, and then we're trying to add on top of it. So,
Mr. Dellinger, let us look at those numbers for the Parks and Recreation and Public Works and just verify the information you're looking at, and we'll follow up with you and the rest of council, because your review and analysis of that work is the same thing that we're doing right now in terms of preparing the recommendation for the FY27 budget. So let us follow up on that and provide at least some initial feedback and information as we continue to put the recommended budget together.
all right, thank you.
This may be a repetitive question, but I'm going to ask it. So are there any departments that are over budget at this time?
No, we don't have any departments where they're in total for their department or over budget.
I have no further questions.
Okay, good observation. Okay, any other comments or information from you, Mr. Beck?
No, sir, not for me.
Okay, if no other questions here, we'll move along and continue with manager report.
Yes, so the next quarterly report is the capital project update, and I'll ask Ms. Harrison if she'll come up to the podium and review the highlights with us.
Good evening. I always feel like these quarterly updates come faster than quarterly somehow. I don't know, quarters go faster. But here we are again, and as Ms. Miller mentioned, I will hit the highlights as usual. If y'all have questions about anything that I don't go over, just stop me as we go along, or we'll talk about it at the end. All right, so we have a lot of projects in construction, so I'm going to make sure that I touch on those because I know that's a lot of the activity that you see. Starting with transportation, we have the Aversboro Road and Garner Road sidewalk projects. Those are, again, 2 different locations, just bundled as one project. The sidewalk on Aversboro Road, that's near the YMCA, has been installed, so the sidewalk itself is complete. You will notice a section of that is still closed off because we are waiting for the handrail that will be installed next to it. And that needs to be installed before it's open for public access. For some reason, there's a complication getting handrails delivered. We had the same problem at the police department, so some shortage there. But as soon as that arrives, it will be installed, and then that sidewalk can be open. Construction has started on the Garner Road section of sidewalk, primarily with some demo and some utility work. No sidewalk installation as of yet. The Bryan Road Improvements Project, you will see this one on your May 5th agenda for award of the construction contract. So that one, we look to be starting construction on this summer to be complete by the end of the calendar year. We have the Main Street Parking Project that was recently awarded. That contract has been executed. This does require a right of entry from the railroad. So we issued what's known as an administrative notice to proceed, which allows them to proceed with making that application to the railroad, but not to proceed with construction until that permission is received. So that timeline is somewhat unknown, as are most things through the railroad, but it could be up to 6 months, hopefully shorter. As soon as that is obtained, then we can start construction on those parking spaces. Staying downtown, we have the Pearl Street and Parker Street Improvement Project. This one is substantially complete, so you will probably see it fall off your report coming up soon. We have finished all the punch list items. They've completed those in March, so finished up all the final items and just working on closeout of that project. And then the Rand Mill Streetscape and Parking Improvements Project is also underway. We have started phase 2 of that project, which includes some utility work in the parking lot area, but also moves the contractor into the intersection of Rand Mill and Main Street. And so if you're downtown, you'll likely see that work going on. We don't have any planned road closures because of that, but there will be some of the parking spaces that are closed and some potential periodic lane closures, but no full road closures. Just a quick note on the resurfacing contract. You probably all have noticed that we completed the raised crosswalk on 5th Avenue. That was part of the 2025 resurfacing contract and the first raised crosswalk that we've done. So a new tool in our traffic calming toolkit to provide both a pedestrian crossing and the function of basically a speed table for slowing cars down at the same time. So that's something that we look forward to potentially implementing in some other locations around town as well, if we see that it's effective on 5th Avenue. Let's see. Moving forward, we have a couple items in the parks section. So the Garner Recreation Center playground is complete. That one you will see come off your report as well. I know when I was downtown for the food truck rodeo, there were lots of kids enjoying it and a birthday party, I think. So it seems to be getting good use for sure. The White Deer Park improvements are under construction. The splash pad is largely complete with a planned opening date of mid-May. The playground is expected to be complete late summer, early fall timeframe, and is currently under construction. And then, of course, we have Jurgen Park under construction. Y'all heard quite a bit about that one tonight, but a whole host of activities that will occur over the next quarter, because this quarter we will be mostly wrapping up construction on that project. So a lot of finishing the playground installations, the interior finishes, the structure, sidewalk, a lot of finishing work. And then looking at a couple of facilities, we have the Garner Police Department steps. So the step work is complete. The final piece of those is to get the stair treads delivered so that we can install those, so that makes the steps ADA compliant. So we need that to get them open, and then those will finally open back up. So the Public Works Facility expansion was a new project on your report last time. This is a project that we've been talking about with you all on the horizon, but we are doing some preliminary work to start looking at a consultant that we would like to work with on that project ahead of it, showing up on the CIP. So actually tomorrow we are doing interviews of consultants. We did an RFQ to get interest and we received 16 submittals for that, which was a lot, which is a good thing. That's a great thing. People are interested. We have a lot of options to look at. So we've narrowed it down to the top 5 and are having them come to do interviews tomorrow so that we can dig in better to which one would be the best option for us. And then we have Building 109, or the Town Hall Annex. We are getting so close. So we are currently hoping to have staff moving into that building in mid-May. We are very close to having the building itself turned over to the town. The contractor has a few finishing punch list items inside the building, and we have a back check of that walkthrough next week to hopefully have that finished up. It is very close to being ready for a certificate of occupancy. We will still have some site work to finish up at the same time as staff is moving into the building. So it's getting close.
Question, is that on
Sure.
budget?
Yes. Yeah, still currently on budget. And then your last couple pages are some of those external projects. So a couple things just to note on the NCDOT project list. You'll see the top one in the design category is U5302, which is the work on 401 between Old Stage and Mechanical. I know this has been a long time coming and long awaited. So that project was awarded. Construction has not started yet, but the contract has been awarded. So it is on its way to getting underway in the next few months. And then the last page is your Raleigh water projects. The difference, the new information that you see highlighted here is Raleigh has started giving us anticipated construction dates for all of those projects, which is helpful for us to look at timelines. So those have been added so that you can have an idea of when that work will be taking place. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Well, let's start with Mr. Vance this time. Questions, comments?
Yes, I have several questions. Are most of the capital projects on schedule?
I'd say it varies. So most of our construction work has stayed pretty well on schedule. We had several capital projects that got behind schedule during the design phase. We've found that in general, I think the engineering and design community was very busy, and we've struggled with consultants to get work delivered on time. But in general, in construction, we haven't had a lot of projects fall behind schedule, with the exception of a couple, like a Town Hall Annex. That one's been notoriously behind. So I would say the majority have been on schedule.
Gotcha. Are there any projects that has a possibility of going over budget, or are there any over budget at this time?
Let's see. So I would say we have, with some of the further out projects, there's always the potential. So we have projects like the South Garner Greenway and Jones Sausage Road. We are getting into the point of looking at right-of-way acquisition for those. So funding for that has been set aside, but I always think until you get into that process, there's always some potential for, those are unpredictable costs, right? And a lot of those larger projects, and the further out they are, the construction costs go up as well. But for the most part, we have projected budgets that are updated regularly, and we're having quarterly budget meetings with our project management team, as well as budget and finance, and some legal in there for procurement as well. And so we've been able to keep pretty good tabs on keeping the budgets up to date as we get new engineers' estimates and updating those as needed.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You have a question about Meadowbrook?
Sure.
And I've read the notes, and there have been recent activity and going back and forth from McAdams. I think my question is more on the project budget part, because I don't know if it was a formal council action per se, but I think we had given sort of a range for a budget for that work, for the whatever planning part of that work, and then the actual build out. And so I kind of am wondering what number goes into that budget number and when. I'm sure you'll have a rhyme or reason for how and when you put money in those buckets, but I'm curious as to what that, when a Meadowbrook would have a number in its project budget.
Sure. And this one is probably more complicated than some of them. So a few different things on Meadowbrook. We have We do have some grant funding that was originally granted when we were doing the dam work. So the portion of the project that is looking at doing the trail, the first thing we would hopefully do would be utilizing that grant funding. And I think that would be, the work that's done there is basically going to be tailored to be able to fit within the funding provided by the grant. So we will use the budget to guide the scope as opposed to the other way around. We do have some funding for the interim use section of Meadowbrook as part of our CIP conversations. I don't remember right off when we have that programmed in, but we can definitely get that back to you. But I know it has been part of our 5-year CIP conversations for funding for some of that portion. We also had some possibility of, if we have funding from Jurgen, depending on how that all washes out with the grants that we've received there, that there might be some potential to use funding that was freed up by the grants received for Jurgen to fund additional pieces of Meadowbrook as well.
Yeah, I'm just curious, like with the conversations with McAdam and scoping, it's like you kind of scope from a budget. And so what numbers sort of been given to them for scope this out on this budget? So that would be just helpful, because I know, again, I don't think it was a formal action, but I think there was talk of 1 or 1.5 million or something is what we had talked about. But if that number, it'd be helpful to see a firmer number for an output. So if we know it's got to be 2 million or a little more. And I have another question. It's more, I have this for other Jurgen. It may not be for you, but okay. I saw the funding sources for Jurgen on the slide, and talking about funding sources for Meadowbrook. What is sort of the primary fund flow for our fee in lieu? Like, is it just a general parks budget? How is that revenue?
You are right. That is probably not a question for me. Okay.
We don't budget using fee in lieu as part of the operating budget or an annual recurring budget. It comes in as a revenue into a dedicated line item, and then it basically becomes part of a restricted fund balance. And so if we do find a particular use for it, like when we bought the land for Jurgen, we bring an amendment to council to appropriate that money at that time. But otherwise, it is never budgeted for use unless a specific purpose comes up.
Thank you. That's helpful. Appreciate that.
No questions.
And Ms. Harrison, the Brown Road improvements look like the opening date was last week. Was this April 16th?
Yes.
Got 9 plant holders, construction in the summer, so about a 6-month period of construction by the end of the year.
Correct. Yep. Yeah, we ended up getting 7 bids for that project, which was a good number. Came in a little bit under our engineer's estimate. So you'll see that on your May 5th agenda for award, and we'll look at getting that started this summer.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, back to you.
Great, thank you, Ms. Harrison. And our final report is your April Talk of the Town. I'll ask Mr. Hodges to just briefly go over that.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Miller. Mayor and council members, one of the things we wanted to draw your and the public's attention to is the burn ban update. In addition to the statewide burn ban, the county earlier this month did enact a local burn ban. There are details about what that consists of on the town's website, so we encourage everyone to be familiar with that and be mindful of the extreme dry conditions that we have. Also on our website, but not listed in this report tonight because it happened after the report, are the new water restrictions from Raleigh Water, our partner, that began on Monday. So there's detail that our communications team has placed on the website. So both of those you'll be able to find on our website. The community organized Garner Relay for Life is this Friday at Lake Benson Park. We also have some great news from our Launch Garner program. 2 of our participants were winners in a Wake Tech program. I'm going to let the economic development team tell you a little bit more about that next month when they give you their report. Also good news that the Downtown Garner Association received a $15,000 check from the Duke Energy Foundation. There's going to be a check presentation later this week, and that's going to go towards being able to provide grants to our business community in the downtown area. And lastly, there's some shows upcoming at GPAC that we just wanted you to draw your attention to and the public's attention to. The second page of your report are your statistics from Garner Info. We're seeing sort of some of the usual things there with pothole pavement repair, street sign maintenance, and tall grass. I will just note, as I always do, that even though we're getting into tall grass season, you're not seeing the numbers jump on the Garner Info report, and that's largely because our team has been taking a very proactive stance on addressing those before they need to even make it to Garner Info. So when we give you our development services report at next month, you will see some stats about the proactive work that our code compliance team is doing that will be supplemental to the things that you see reported through Garner Info. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Any questions from Mr. Hodges? Back to the town manager.
Those are all the reports we have for this evening. Certainly willing to answer any other questions that council may have.
And that brings us to attorney reports.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just have two brief reports for you. Our deputy town clerk, she sent you some information about the School of Government's Planning and Zoning Regional Board Workshop. This year, it's on legislative zoning decisions. It's about a 3-hour course. There are 2 online opportunities coming up, April 30th and May 14th. So I'd encourage council, if you're available, to attend those, even if you've attended those in the past. We just need you to reply to Ms. Murray so that we can get a group discount on the registration fee. I will let you know that members of the Planning Commission and some of our newer planning staff have already been registered for that, so they'll be attending as well. And then my second announcement is that I'll be attending the Zoning, Planning, and Land Use Conference this Friday that is put on by the North Carolina Bar Association.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And that brings us to item 4. Under updates, and that is council reports on items other than committees, which we hit earlier. And let's start with Mr. Vance down here for any council reports.
No council report.
Mr. Dellinger.
Yeah, I did want to comment on Mr. Avery's comments on Jackie John's Park and the parking situation. And then we've had some conversations about that park with the assistant town manager on any ways we could improve that field, and there are limitations on the parking and those types of things. So I think if we can look at that in the context of our public works facility redesign and maybe incorporating parking or something. So I think it's a good, people use the park, and he makes a really good point. So I think looking at interim options, but I don't think there are many, but as we look longer term, trying to look at that campus as that park in public works and see if there are accommodations we can make to make the park safer, if not still make it a community park, which is what it is, but also just accommodate some of the higher volume uses that occur with that park when people come out there. So
yeah, now is the time to address that. You're exactly right. Anything else?
That's all.
Mr. Dowling?
No report.
Mr. Singleton?
Yes, I have several. One, I think I mentioned we were elite softball ball day a few weeks back, and then on April 11th, we were at both Garner Area Sports League and Garner Baseball. So I was there at ball day. Big crowds as always. I think Garner Baseball had 550 kids, and Garner Sports League has about 450. So that's 1,000 plus 200 volunteers at one and 100 plus at the other. So you're talking 1,400 people that are involved. So that's important. And they always recognize Public Works because of the work they do and help. I want to thank Mr. Poole we had some discussions at these ball days. He sent us all an email about temporary outfield fencing at South Garner 1, batting cage construction, future field dimension expansion, and the project funding. So I appreciate Mr. Poole and his work and getting that information to us. Mr. Hodges sent us a email that I had inquired. I talked with both Attorney Jones and also Mr. Triesenberg about moving forward and considering strong consideration of a data center moratorium. It's happening in Apex. I believe Wendell's moving forward with it. Wake County's moving forward with it. And I'll put it out there. I don't know how the rest of the council feels. I'm making an assumption that we would want to do that, but if so, we have to give Ms. Jones and Mr. Treasenberg some direction, because as he stated here, it would take at least probably a couple of months. Well, he said they could have something on May 19th. That may be early. That's say 60 days. So I reckon we just need to give y'all some direction if that's what we would like to see happen. Is that what you need, some direction, right?
Yes, we would appreciate direction on not only that you want to go forward, but what are your goals in going forward? Because there are certain statutory requirements that we have to meet.
Yeah, thanks for the good information you've sent us already related to that. Thanks for several council members who expressed concern. This is certainly something that's on the horizon. Our neighbors are dealing with us. If you would, please set up more dialogue with us to figure out what do we need to do next and what are the options. So anything you can do to help us move ahead. I think
Because
I'm
we're looking
speaking
for
for
that there's a consensus to move forward with options on a moratorium.
That's what we're looking for.
And for
yes.
clarification, would it be a moratorium or any options that would help better address control over data centers? Because I think there might be some interim solutions that could be done shorter term that we've talked about that might help facilitate addressing some of the concerns why this longer term issue is being addressed.
Yes, I think you've said the same thing that Attorney Jones has said, that part of our application for a moratorium or justifying that is what other steps could be taken, have we taken. So certainly we want to look at what can we do in a week, in a month, and in 90 days, kind of things, yeah. We definitely want to.
Because as you said, any changes would require a zoning text amendment, which is a process that has to go through public hearing, consistency review by the Planning Commission, and then adoption. So a moratorium, a targeted moratorium would allow for that work to be done without allowing projects to potentially submit for application and then opt for permit choice and not be under the appropriate regulations.
Could we be provided options? Because as these things are occurring currently, and people may be still applying, we would probably want to know what our options are with this being such a huge issue. I will say I'm completely 100% supportive of a moratorium currently at this point, but I would definitely love to know what our options are, especially our interim options.
Yeah.
I would just say also provide some guidance at some point on options for expediting whatever decision we decide to make, but also sticking to the legal process that we have to follow as well.
And we're having a work session a week from tonight. Maybe we get a little more feedback or a little more specific information. Is that kind of what we're looking for? What are our options? What can we do in the short run, the medium run, and the long run? So any specific questions that you can address to us will be helpful.
Certainly can give you some options on what the process would be for either one. I don't know that we'd have language ready for you to review by next week, and definitely not to get into the agenda packet.
Correct, yeah. We want to do what we can in an orderly manner to be moving ahead steadily on this very, very critical issue.
And one got approved by Vance County, what, Monday night?
Yesterday.
Yesterday, I'm sorry, yesterday, today's Tuesday. And that was, the residents were rather spicy, to say the least. So that was a 40-acre site that got approved.
Okay.
Thank you for listening to us and that. Thank you for the council supporting it and how we decided to move forward. That's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. And I think we're back to Mr. Matthews for any other council report.
Good to go.
Okay. If there's no other actions we need to take or discussions we need to have, I will accept a motion to adjourn. Well, if there's another question, let's talk about it.
So is there no closed session tonight?
I somewhat prematurely put that on this week's agenda. It's probably more appropriate for next week's agenda. So we'll move that, if council agreeable to that, to move that to the work session next week.
Yeah. Good eye. That was on the original, I think maybe on the latest draft. It still shows there, but we'll get a crack at that soon enough at appropriate time. Good question. If no other questions, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion was made by Mr. Dillinger, second by Mr. Stallings All in favor of adjourn, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by nay? Meeting adjourned.